Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Marvel's Thanos' little brother and I have super god villain system. Chapter 21. Soon, a small fighter jet flew down from the aerospace carrier, and then Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., came over with a team of fully armed agents. However, when he was still hundreds of meters away from Sook and others, Nick Fury suddenly stopped, because from a distance, he could already feel the murderous intent in Red Tank's eyes. Red Tank has always been a very troublesome guy for S.H.I.E.L.D., almost second only to Hulk. S.H.I.E.L.D. always spends a lot of effort to capture him, but this time they came in a hurry and did not carry professional heavy weapons, so Nick Fury thought it would be better to be cautious. After taking the loudspeaker from his subordinates, Nick Fury shouted to Sook and the others, "Aren't you looking for me? I'm already here, what do you want to talk about? I think I need to tell you again that you have been completely surrounded. Any resistance is futile, and it's best to surrender." When saying this, Nick Fury was somewhat lacking in confidence, because you have to know that the other side has not only Red Tank, but also a telepath. Sometimes, telepaths are much more dangerous than power-type people like Red Tank. Add a mutant with unknown abilities, and it would be a lie to say that he is not nervous at this moment. Hearing this, Red Tank was instantly annoyed again, but at Sook's signal, he finally endured it. "You wait here for me, I'll go talk to him." After giving a light instruction, Sook walked over. Facing Sook's arrival, all the agents, including Nick Fury, became a little nervous. For a moment, all the weapons were aimed at Sook. As long as Sook had any bad intentions, he would be shot into a sieve in an instant. But of course, this was just the imagination of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. With the weapons in their hands, they couldn't even hurt a hair on Sook's body. After walking to Nick Fury, Sook smiled and said, "Don't be nervous, I just want to talk to you, there's no need to make such a big fuss." Compared with Red Tank, Sook, who was only 15 or 16 years old, was obviously more reassuring. After looking Sook up and down and making sure that there should be no danger, Nick Fury whispered to an agent beside him. In an instant, all the guns aimed at Sook were taken back, but they still maintained a guarded posture. "Tell me, what do you want to talk about?" After sending away the other subordinates, Nick Fury took another step forward and asked. "I need something from you," Sook said directly. "What is it?" Nick Fury asked curiously. "The Space Stone, you should call it the Cosmic Cube, right? But it doesn't matter, I need it." How do you know that the Cosmic Cube is in our hands?" Nick Fury said in surprise. "You know, the Cosmic Cube has always been the most important secret of S.H.I.E.L.D. Only the highest level agents know it, and no one else knows it. In this case, how did the young man in front of him know it?" Facing Nick Fury's surprise, Sook didn't care at all, and still said, "Don't worry about how I know it. I can only tell you that in the near future, the Earth will face an unprecedented war, and this war is something you have never encountered. The one that triggered this war is the Cosmic Cube. It does not belong to you humans, and it will only bring you disasters." Nick Fury was silent at first, but after a moment of hesitation, he suddenly laughed, and then said cunningly, "Sorry, although I don't know how you know this, you have no right to negotiate at all. Do it." As the word, "do it," sounded, a drone hidden in the dark suddenly swung out 3 blue chains, which instantly caught the necks of Sook, Red Tank and Emma. At the same time, hundreds of agents took up their weapons again. This is the latest mutant suppressor developed, which can be fired from a long distance. I have to thank you. If you hadn't bought me precious time, I wouldn't have been able to catch you so easily," Nick Fury said with a smile. "Hey, I wanted to have a good talk." Seeing this, Sook was somewhat disappointed. He had originally thought that he could have a good talk with Nick Fury, but now it seemed that there was no hope. In this world, it was better to speak with strength. "Remember, I have already given you a chance." After saying this, Sook's eyes suddenly became stern, and in an instant, a strong killing intent began to emerge. The domineering aura in his body was sensed, and instantly spread out from him to the surroundings. Sook had never been teased like this since he came to Earth for so long, so at this moment, he did not deliberately control his aura, and the consequence was that the domineering aura completely erupted. Like a volcanic eruption. Boom. Almost instantly, the agents around Nick Fury suddenly fell down one after another, and the agents surrounding Sook and others were also like this. Only a few determined agents were still struggling to hold on. Nick Fury is the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he has received WIL training since he was very young, so even when he was attacked head-on by Sook's domineering aura, he still did not faint, but just knelt down in front of Sook weakly. However, even so, he was not feeling well. The powerful momentum directly crushed his heart, like a mountain pressing him so hard that he could not breathe and almost fainted. He had never encountered such power before. It seemed that at this moment, the person standing in front of him was not a mutant, but a god. Regardless of the beads of sweat on his forehead, Nick Fury raised his head and said with a very ugly face, "What's going on? The suppressor should be effective." Why is this happening? Who are you? Suppressor. Suke sneered when he heard this, then pulled off the suppressor from his neck and threw it on the ground. Nick Fury, you don't need to know who I am, because it doesn't matter anymore. I've already given you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Next, prepare to face my wrath. After saying this, Sook looked up at the aerospace carrier in the sky. In an instant, his eyes suddenly turned red again. Boom! With a loud bang, a shock wave containing the power of the Phoenix suddenly shot out from Sook's eyes, and then directly hit the aerospace carrier in the sky. The huge power instantly shot a big hole in the aerospace carrier and destroyed its power. For a moment, the aerospace carrier began to shake, and then crashed into the ground. At the same time, countless uncontrolled drones were flying around and crashing into the ground, and the entire venue became extremely violent. Walking to Red Tank and White Queen step by step, Sook casually ripped off the suppressors on their necks, and then said to Red Tank lightly, "Go, except that you can't kill people, everything else is up to you." After hearing this, Red Tank showed a cruel smile and rushed over quickly. As for Emma, she stayed beside Suke obediently. The huge aerospace mothership crashed down, and there was another big explosion in an instant, destroying many buildings, countless drones exploded, and there was another explosion. Coupled with the rampage of the Red Tank, this place was like hell. But Suke just looked at all this calmly, with no waves in his heart. Coming to Earth, even if he carried a supervillain system, Suke still didn't think of becoming a villain. Of course, he didn't think of becoming a superhero. If he had to say, he wanted to be a good person, but of course, he never thought of being a bad nice guy. What is a bad nice guy? It is a person who accommodates others in everything, responds to requests, sacrifices himself, allows others to gain, and gives in to others to save face. It is better to hide tears in a smile than to destroy the harmonious atmosphere. It has the spirit of a martyr, which makes people moved for 3 minutes, but guilty for a lifetime. This kind of person is always thinking about how to keep a good image in the minds of others. Therefore, sometimes he has to sail according to the wind, and sometimes even bends the upright to please others. To put it simply, this is also called a saint. And Sook has never been a virgin. If Nick Fury had directly rejected Sook, then Sook would not have done anything. At most, he would have taken Red Tank and Emma away from here, and then find a way to get the Space Stone himself. But what? Nick Fury played a trick on Sook, and that was something Sook couldn't tolerate. As a Titan, Sook has the same pride as his brother Thanos. He does not allow any deception or betrayal. Anyone who dares to deceive or betray them will be hit the hardest by them. Even if he is defined as a villain by the world, Sook will not hesitate. Instead of being a virgin, he would rather be a villain. And Sook believes that after this lesson, Nick Fury should begin to reconsider his suggestion just now. On the other side, after knocking down all the remaining S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who could still stand, Red Tank came to the S.H.I.E.L.D.'s helicarrier again and smashed the prison where he was previously imprisoned. Then he pulled Nick Fury's leg and came to Sook with a relaxed look. "Boss, I listened to you. I didn't kill anyone," Red Tank said with a refreshed look after throwing Nick Fury in front of Suke. Before, when he called Suke boss, Red Tank was more out of fear, but now, he was completely convinced. In the blink of an eye, he killed the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. and shot down their aerospace carrier from the sky. I'm afraid there will be no one else in the world who can do this except Suke. This little brother, he did a very good job. Suke lowered his head slightly, looked down at Nick Fury on the ground and said, "Nick Fury, should I reconsider my previous proposal now?" All the agents were killed in an instant, and the helicarrier was destroyed. Nick Fury was really out of temper now. And he was not a fool. he also saw that Suke did not want to be their enemy. All this was caused by his own actions. It is conceivable that if he had not chosen to take action just now, but chose to win over Suke, then what a good thing it would have been. Alas. With a sigh, Nick Fury finally spoke. I'm sorry to have offended you before, but I really can't do anything about the Cosmic Cube because the Cosmic Cube has been stolen. What? Hearing this, Suke was also slightly surprised. He didn't expect that Loki would get the Space Stone so quickly. If this is true, then it seems that the Battle of New York is about to break out. But it seems a little wrong. According to Suke's previous understanding, the Battle of New York should have started in 2012, but it is only 2010 now, so there should be 2 years before the Battle of New York starts. Besides, the Avengers has not been established yet, and it is even just an idea of Iron Man. If the Battle of New York really breaks out, how should it be fought? The more Suke thought about it, the more headache he felt, and he could only ask, then do you know where Loki is now? Loki. Who is Loki? Nick Fury asked with a puzzled look on his face. Suke was a little speechless, thinking, you are still playing tricks on me at this time. It seems that you really can't be honest without a fight. Then, just when Suke was about to let Red Tank give Nick Fury a good beating again, Emma beside him whispered, he didn't lie, he really doesn't know who Loki is. What? Suke was a little confused. Of course he believed Emma's words, but how could Nick Fury not know who Loki was? Unless Loki didn't steal the Space Stone. Thinking of this, Suke was surprised again, because he really didn't know who else besides Loki could steal the Space Stone from S.H.I.E.L.D. But it didn't matter if he didn't know, as long as someone knew. Tell me, who stole the Space Stone from you? Suke looked at Nick Fury again and asked. Nick Fury didn't say anything, but took out a metal object from his pocket and handed it to Suke, and then said, it's this guy. After Suke saw the thing clearly, he felt a little unwell. Because it was not something else, but a special throwing knife, and the shape of the throwing knife was exactly like a bat. This is Batman's logo. WTF. Batman stole the Space Stone. Suke was really a little drunk. What's the big deal about Batman stealing the Space Stone from S.H.I.E.L.D.? The Space Stone is not something from your DC family. How can you have no professional ethics at all? The world after the fusion of Marvel and DC is really painful. It seems that we have to go to Gotham City, the hometown of Batman. Someone is coming. When Suke was looking at the pain in his face, Emma suddenly whispered in Suke's ear. Soon, Tony in a plane dedicated to the X-Men landed. Hey, what the hell is going on? There's an earthquake and an explosion. What the hell is S.H.I.E.L.D. doing? Nick Fury, what are you doing? Shit, what happened to you? Tony said in surprise as he looked around. He originally thought that all this was done by S.H.I.E.L.D., but when he saw Nick Fury's appearance, he realized that it didn't seem to be the case. On the other side, Wolverine and Jean also walked down from the plane. After looking around at the miserable situation, Wolverine looked at Jean helplessly and said, I'll make a bet with you. Suke must have done all this. But at this time, Jean was too lazy to pay attention to Wolverine. She quickly came to Suke and asked with a worried look on her face, how is it? Are you hurt? Gently stroking Jean's cheek, Suke smiled and said, don't worry, I'm fine. Then, Tony, Wolverine and Jean found Red Tank and Emma next to Suke. Swish. Without saying anything, Wolverine stretched out a pair of steel claws, and Tony also entered a state of alert. Seeing this, Red Tank raised his fist again, ready to attack at any time. As for Emma, she looked at Jean who was staying beside Suke with a dazed look on her face, and no one knew what she was thinking. In general, the atmosphere suddenly became tense again. Don't do it. Seeing this, Suke hurriedly spoke out to stop them, saying, Red Tank and White Queen were controlled by someone, so they did what they did before, but now everything is fine, they won't do bad things again. Really? Then what's going on here? Tony turned his head and looked around. This, I can explain. Before Suke could speak, Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., suddenly stood up not far away and said to Tony, it was just a misunderstanding, but it's okay now. Tony looked around speechlessly, unable to imagine what kind of misunderstanding could lead to the annihilation of S.H.I.E.L.D. However, at this time, Nick Fury was too lazy to explain anything to Tony, and instead came back to Suke. So, you are not a mutant, right? Nick Fury pointed to the broken mutant suppressor on the ground and said. Soo-K nodded slightly, admitting this. After all, Nick Fury is not a fool, and this kind of thing will definitely not be hidden from him. Half a month ago, a lifeboat from outer space landed on the mutant school. If I'm not mistaken, it was you. Nick Fury asked again, looking serious. Is this important? Sook smiled and said, it was important before, but now, it's not important anymore. Nick Fury said slowly, his tone suddenly became relaxed. Although Sook did not directly admit his identity as an alien, Nick Fury had already got the answer he wanted. Although the loss of S.H.I.E.L.D. today was tragic, it was not completely worthless. At least Nick Fury could be sure that Sook should not be a threat to the Earth, otherwise they would have died long ago. After all, in front of Sook, they had no chance of winning. After a simple packing, everyone followed Tony back to Stark Tower, except for Nick Fury, of course, because he had more important things to do now. Along the way, Wolverine and Red Tank were always in a state of incompatibility, which made Sook a little speechless, but there was no trouble after all. After returning to Stark Tower, Red Tank and Emma were simply settled, and Sook came to a conference room in Stark Tower, where Tony, Wolverine and Jean had already been waiting here. The most conspicuous place is the holographic image of Professor X. Professor, Sook greeted him. Professor X forced a smile, because he had learned from Wolverine what happened before. Although Nick Fury had always emphasized that this was just a misunderstanding, how could such a thing be hidden from Professor X? The matter of Red Tank and White Queen has been resolved, and all the mutants in the mutant fighting arena have been rescued. We can go back tomorrow, but Professor, what should we do with Red Tank? It's a bit too dangerous to bring this guy to school, isn't it? And I don't know what's wrong with this guy, now he only obeys Soo-K's orders. Wolverine said to Professor X, with a speechless face. Professor X was silent for a while, and then he said, let me think about this matter first. Soo-K, do you have anything to say? As he spoke, Professor X looked at Soo-K again. He nodded gently at first, and then Soo-K said, Professor, I'm afraid I can't go back for the time being. I have to go to Gotham City. Someone stole an important thing from S.H.I.E.L.D., and I have to find it back. About this matter, Professor X also had a general understanding after talking to Nick Fury just now. Although he didn't know what the so-called Space Stone was, there was no doubt that it must be something extraordinary that Nick Fury and Soo-K valued so much. In this case, you should be careful. Gotham City is different from New York. It is a very special city. When you get there, you need to be careful about everything. Knowing that Soo-K had made up his mind, Professor X didn't say anything more. However, considering that Gotham City was a chaotic city, he still reminded him again and again. The next morning, everyone woke up early. Iron Man was going to help S.H.I.E.L.D. clean up yesterday's battlefield, Wolverine was going to take Jean back to the mutant school, and Sook was going to Gotham City to find Batman. In general, everyone was very busy. When it was time to leave, Sook and Jean were naturally a little reluctant to leave. Sook, I heard from Mr. Logan that Gotham City is a very dangerous place, full of darkness and crime. You must be careful when you go there. Chin said with a worried look on his face. Sook smiled and scratched Chin's nose, then said, Silly, do you think I will get hurt? But I promise you, I will be careful. Hey, what should we do with these two guys? They don't want to go back with us. Just then, Wolverine suddenly came over with a look of impatience, and behind him were Red Tank and Emma. Considering the strength of Red Tank and Emma, Professor X finally decided to let Wolverine take them back to the mutant school, but unexpectedly they all refused and were not willing to go to the mutant school at all. Wolverine didn't like Red Tank in the first place, and he became a little impatient all of a sudden, and the two almost fought. Soo-K thought for a while, then said to Wolverine, Forget it, Mr. Logan, I'll take care of these two, don't worry, I promise not to let them mess around again. Wolverine was eager to get rid of the trouble of Red Tank, and when he heard this, he quickly agreed, Okay, then I'll leave them to you, Jean, let's go. Then, with Sook's reluctant eyes, Wolverine and Jean left on the plane. In fact, Sook originally wanted to take Jean to Gotham City, but considering the special dark side of Gotham City, he finally gave up the idea. After all, Gotham City is a crazy city and Jean is not suitable to go there. Walking up to Red Tank and Emma, looking at the big guy Red Tank, Sook curled his lips and said, "Tell me, why don't you want to go to the mutant school?" "There are children in school, and I don't like children," Red Tank said in a sly tone. This is also a reason. But since Red Tank doesn't want to go to the mutant school, we still have to find him a place to live, preferably with someone watching him, otherwise who knows what trouble he will cause. Thinking of this, Suke suddenly had an idea, and then looked at Tony not far away and said, "Tony, did you just say that you would help S.H.I.E.L.D. clean up yesterday's battlefield?" "That's right. What's wrong?" Tony asked with some confusion. "How about I send you a helper?" Suke patted Red Tank's body and said with a smile. Tony's face froze at first, and then he said speechlessly, "Okay, but I'm afraid this guy won't listen." "Don't worry, as long as you don't use the mutant suppressor to restrain him and don't do anything to him, I promise he won't do anything wrong." Suke promised. "Okay then." After hearing what Suke said, Tony finally agreed. "Did you hear what I just said?" Sook turned around and looked at Hong Tank. "I heard it, but what if they still want to arrest me?" Red Tank scratched his head and said, it was obvious that he still didn't trust S.H.I.E.L.D. "Don't worry, with Tony here, no one will catch you. But of course, you have to be careful too. This time you are going to help, not to fight, do you understand?" Sook instructed. Although Red Tank did not trust S.H.I.E.L.D., he trusted Sook very much, and besides, he really had nowhere to go at the moment, so he finally agreed. After Red Tank's affairs were dealt with, Sook looked at Emma and said, "Emma, why don't you go? You don't hate children as much as Red Tank, do you?" "No." Emma blushed at first, and then, as if she had mustered up the courage, she said, "I want to go to Gotham City with you. No matter what you want to do, I can help you. Please take me with you." It must be said that Emma's request was really beyond Suke's expectations. Looking at Emma's serious face, Suke couldn't refuse for a moment. But thinking about it carefully, it seems that taking Emma with him is also a good idea. After all, she is also a telepath who can help him get any information he wants. Of course, the most important thing is that Emma is also a beauty, and a goddess-level beauty. Cough cough cough. Realizing that he had been thinking in the wrong direction, Suke coughed a few times, then nodded and said, "Okay, then you can go with me." Hearing this, Emma finally laughed. New York City is a long way from Gotham City. Because he had to take Emma with him, it was not easy for Suke to fly there directly. Besides, it would be a bit too conspicuous. Fortunately, Tony, a local tyrant, was there. Without Suke saying anything, Tony waved his hand and a helicopter landed on the top floor of Stark Building. "Let's go." After greeting Emma, Suke got on the helicopter with Emma. The helicopter flew through the sky, and soon, the Stark Building could no longer be seen. If you don't mind, I have something to ask you." In the helicopter, Emma hesitated again and finally spoke. Sook retracted his gaze to the window, nodded and said, "Ask, there is no need to be so restrained with me, I won't eat you." While speaking, Sook couldn't help but look at Emma again. Seeing Emma's tall and slim figure, he suddenly felt that, eating Amy was the right choice. But Emma didn't notice Suke's strange look. Then, she asked in a low voice, "You are not a mutant, right?" Suke smiled and said, "No." "Then who are you?" Emma suddenly became expectant. First she pointed to the sky, then Sook said, "I come from the distant Saturn Titan. Because my planet was destroyed, I came to Earth." Sure enough, when Emma heard this, she was not shocked at all. Instead, she completely relaxed and breathed a long sigh of relief. When she saw the various powers displayed by Sook yesterday, she had guessed that Sook might be an alien, because mutants simply could not have such powerful powers. But this was just a guess of hers at the time and had not been confirmed. Now that she heard Sook say it himself, she was completely relaxed. But then again, for her, what is the difference between humans, mutants or aliens? When Sook said last night that he needed her and wanted to give her a place to stay, she had already sworn in her heart that she would follow him all her life. But, thinking of the intimate behavior between Suke and the red-haired girl in the morning, Emma felt aggrieved, because she was no worse than that girl. "You two, I'm sorry that I can only take you here. Gotham City is too chaotic, and they don't welcome outsiders. I can't go in anymore. At this moment, the pilot suddenly shouted at Sook. Sook nodded and found that he had come to Gotham City without knowing when. Sook didn't say anything about the pilot's words, because he knew in his heart that Gotham City was indeed a chaotic city. Then, the helicopter began to land. At the same time, a riot was breaking out in the Blackgate prison in Gotham City. Hurry up, those guards are about to come. If you weren't the only one who could make the bomb, I would have killed you. Can you guys just be quiet for a while? You're making so much noise that I can't work. This thing is a bomb, do you want to die? In Blackgate prison, several criminals in prison uniforms were fiddling with something in front of an iron door, and from time to time, a burst of shouting and cursing could be heard. Okay, get out of the way. Someone shouted, and the prisoners surrounding the iron gate immediately got out of the way and moved away from the iron gate. Then, boom, a huge explosion sounded, and the huge iron gate was blown away. Relying on some materials from the infirmary, the talents of Blackgate prison easily made a chemical bomb, which blew open the prison gate. Brothers, prison break! A shout rang out, and the entire iron gate prison suddenly became completely boiling. Soon, the iron doors were opened one after another, and all the prisoners rushed out. The prison guards of Blackgate prison hadn't figured out what was going on before they saw a large group of prisoners pouring out of the corridor. They were so scared that they quickly pulled out their pistols. But before they could shoot, they were knocked to the ground by those crazy criminals. The criminals took the prison keys from the prison guards and began to release more prisoners. Brothers, we are free. I'm going to take revenge and kill those fools who framed me. Gotham City belongs to us, it's our city. The criminals in Gotham City are all vicious villains without exception, and the worst of them are imprisoned in Blackgate Prison and Arkham Asylum. It can be said that the prisoners in Blackgate Prison and Arkham Asylum are the best among the bad guys in Gotham City. For example, the Joker, the Penguin, Bane, etc. Any one of these guys could turn Gotham City upside down. When Sook and Emma officially entered Gotham City, they saw only chaos. Gunshots, cries, roars, and begging for mercy kept ringing in their ears. Prisoners wearing prison uniforms with weapons could be seen everywhere on the streets. The prisoners rushed into other people's homes, robbed them wantonly, and threw the owners out like wild dogs. No one dared to resist, because anyone who dared to resist would face the risk of being shot. It is indeed a Gotham City with simple folk customs. Walking on this street, Suke couldn't help but sigh. This is not a city at all. It's basically a hell. Probably only dark heroes like Batman can adapt to such a place. If it were Superman or Iron Man, they would be driven crazy in minutes. The people of Gotham are famous for their tough folk customs throughout the DC. The bad guys here do almost all kinds of bad things. Even when Darkseid, the biggest villain of DC, led his army of demons to invade the Earth, and the humans in other cities completely gave up resistance, these bad guys in Gotham City directly fought with the army of demons. This is unique in the entire DC, and even in the Marvel Universe, but this is the real Gotham City. Looking at the chaos in front of her, Emma felt very uncomfortable. She whispered in Suke's ear, "Do you want to help them?" "No need." Suke waved his hand and said, "This kind of thing happens almost every day in Gotham City. It's impossible to control it, and Gotham City has always been protected by someone, so let's not interfere." It's not that Suke is cruel, but along the way, such things can be seen basically everywhere. If it is really controlled, who knows when it will end? Besides, these things should be the work of the Gotham City Police Department and Batman, and he doesn't need to interfere. You know, as the Dark Knight of Gotham City, Batman has always been very concerned about others interfering in the affairs of Gotham City. He doesn't need to do such a thankless thing. The most important thing for him right now is to find Batman and get back the space gem. As for other things, who cares about him? Hey, I didn't expect that there is such a beautiful girl here. Beautiful girl, it's very dangerous here. Do you want me to protect you? I promise I will be gentle. Suddenly, at this moment, a fat middle-aged fat man in prison uniform suddenly stopped in front of Suke and Emma, drooling at Emma. "I saw this woman first, go to hell." Bang! Before Suke and Emma could say anything, an angry voice suddenly rang out from the side, followed by a burst of gunfire. The fat man was instantly shot in the head and fell to the ground helplessly. Fat man, you dare to steal my woman, you must be tired of living. A thin man rushed forward, yelling and kicking the fat man a few times. Then, he looked at Emma with ill intention and said, "Don't be afraid, beauty, this fat man has been killed by me. How can a beauty like you be with such a fat man? You should be with me." The thin man who spoke was very thin, but his eyes were very prominent, just like a human-shaped toad. Emma almost vomited after just one look. Suke was speechless. He patted Emma on the back and said, "There is no way. Gotham City is such a chaotic city. There are scum like this everywhere in this city. You fool, how dare you call me a fool?" When the toad heard this, he became very angry. Then he raised his gun and pointed it at Suke. "Boy, you look like a rich man from the way you dress, so this woman should be yours, right? But I always hate rich people like you the most. I'm going to kill you and then take your woman away." Bang! As soon as he finished speaking, the toad Skinny pulled the trigger. Suke was a little helpless. Why do these guys like to be cheap? He obviously didn't want to kill anyone. Swish! In an instant, Suke stretched out 2 fingers and gently clamped the bullet. In the astonished eyes of the toad Skinny, Suke turned the direction of the bullet and flicked it towards the toad Skinny's head. Whoosh! A sound of breaking through the air was heard, and the bullet instantly penetrated the toad Skinny's head. "You shouldn't have offended me." These were the last words Toad Skinny heard before he died. Sook is neither a saint nor a superhero, so he does not follow the rule of not killing. In Gotham City, the winner is the king. If he was just an ordinary person, he would have been killed by someone else's gun just now. Killing is the first time for Sook, but his heart is calm and a little scary, as if he just killed an ant instead of a human. Think about it carefully. As a titan, aren't humans just like ants? After walking through the chaotic streets and arriving at the center of Gotham City, the situation is obviously much better. Although there are still many criminals in prison uniforms wandering around, there are no more murders on the street. Sook doesn't know much about the timeline of the current DC universe. Before looking for Batman, he thinks he'd better understand this world first. As a person in the world after the fusion of Marvel and DC, Emma naturally knows about this world. After arriving at a restaurant and ordering some food casually, Emma began to tell Sook about the recent situation of the city. After listening to what Emma said, Sook just felt a headache, because he found that the situation in Gotham City seemed to be much more troublesome than he thought. And the current timeline should be after Man of Steel and before Batman vs. Superman. Why do you say that? Because according to Emma, the Kryptonians invaded the Earth last year, causing incalculable losses and many lives. Although they were defeated by Superman in the end, the shadow left by the Kryptonians is still there. It is worth mentioning that Gotham City seems to have been involved in the Battle of the Kryptonians. Wayne Enterprises, the largest company in Gotham City, was destroyed because of the Battle of the Kryptonians, which directly led to the deaths of hundreds of people. So, Batman is going to fight Superman soon, Suke said thoughtfully while gently stirring the coffee in front of him. He didn't expect that he would encounter such a surprising thing as soon as he arrived in Gotham City. Superman vs. Batman. This is a crucial event in the DC universe. In this event, Batman defeated and even almost killed Superman, who was worshipped as a god by a few humans, with human strength and wisdom. If Superman is the representative of light, then Batman is the incarnation hidden in the darkness of Gotham City. He is the Dark Knight in Gotham City and even the entire DC universe. This is a duel between light and darkness. This is a duel between man and God. And man will eventually defeat God. If you think about it carefully, it really makes people look forward to it. Ding! Congratulations to the host for triggering the main mission 1 in the 600th world. As a supervillain, how could you miss such an important thing? Help and promote the duel between Superman and Batman, and assist Batman in creating the Justice League. Prompt Superman and Batman to confront each other. Mission reward: 500,000 points and a chance to win a prize. Assist Batman in establishing the Justice League and you will be rewarded with 1 million points and 2 chances to draw a lottery. Without any warning, the system's voice sounded in Suke's mind again. Shit! Suke almost spit out the coffee he had just drunk. He thought to himself, what the hell, are you kidding me? Didn't they just release the main quests of the Marvel world? Why are they releasing the main quests of the 600th world now? What's going on? And he hasn't even finished 1/10 of the main quests of the Marvel world, and now he's getting the main quests of the 600th world. Isn't this a rip-off? Although the rewards are rich, I can't do it. For a moment, Suke felt that he was the most miserable host in history. Not only were the tasks one after another, but they were all extremely difficult. Why couldn't he start by killing small monsters like everyone else? Speechless, Suke could only ask in his heart, "Hey, system, aren't you being too tricky? I haven't even completed one of the 3 tasks about the Marvel world that I was given before, and you've given me 2 more tasks at once. I'm really stressed out by you. It's normal to feel pressure. As a villain, it's normal to feel pressure. The mission cannot be changed or reduced. Please complete it as soon as possible." The system replied, "It's really a rip-off." After a while of complaining, Suke could only accept this fact, but fortunately the system was kind enough to not limit the time to complete the task. In addition, the timeline of this world was a bit chaotic because of the fusion of the Marvel and DC worlds, so Suke had absolutely enough time to complete the task. Moreover, Loki needed the Space Stone to invade the Earth. As long as Suke mastered the Space Stone, the progress of the Marvel world's timeline could almost be said to be completely controlled by Suke. In this regard, the system was not too bad. However, since Suke has come to Gotham City now, it is still necessary to do the Gotham City mission first. If Suke remembers correctly, Batman established the Justice League after Superman fought Batman, so helping Batman establish the Justice League can be discussed later. The most important thing now is to promote the battle between Superman and Batman. Based on his understanding of Batman, Suke knew that this matter should not be too difficult, because Batman has rarely trusted anyone except himself. Even after the establishment of the Justice League, he still made a plan to defeat them for all members. Simply put, Batman is a person with a crisis of trust. But if you think about it carefully, it seems that this can't be blamed on him. After all, he is the only one in the Justice League who does not have superpowers, etc. Thinking of this, Suke was stunned again. He suddenly thought, could it be that Batman stole the Space Stone from S.H.I.E.L.D. just to defeat Superman? Thinking about it carefully, this is really possible. When Superman fought General Zod before, he destroyed Batman's Wayne building, killing hundreds of Batman's employees. As the Dark Knight of Gotham City, how could Batman ignore it? However, General Zod is dead, and only Superman is alive, so he will definitely target Superman. If he wants to defeat Superman, human strength alone is definitely not enough, he needs something more powerful. Space Gem. Now everything makes sense. Suke, what's wrong with you? Suddenly at this moment, Emma's voice rang out, bringing Suke back to reality. Oh, nothing, just thinking about what you said before. Coming back to his senses, Suke casually turned a blind eye. Emma had no doubt about Suke's words. After taking a sip of coffee, she asked again, so where are we going next? Big news. We have been confirmed that Bruce Wayne has announced that he will hold a charity gala at Wayne Manor tonight. Part of the charity funds raised from the gala will be used to repair the buildings destroyed by aliens a year ago, and part of it will be used as scholarships for orphans who became orphans because of this disaster. Just as Suke was about to speak, a striking piece of news suddenly appeared on the TV not far away, accompanied by a photo of Bruce Wayne. I've decided, we're going to Wayne Manor tonight. Suke turned around and looked at Emma and smiled. Why, aren't we here to look for the space gem stolen by Batman? What are we going to Wayne Manor for? Emma asked curiously. It was obvious that she didn't know that Bruce Wayne was Batman. Suke didn't explain, but just smiled and said, you'll understand when the time comes. Time passed quickly, and it was night in a blink of an eye. Because they were going to attend the party hosted by Bruce Wayne, Suke and Emma also changed their clothes. Suke was in a handsome suit and Emma was in a white dress. With her tall figure, it really gave people endless reverie. After getting the clothes, they also needed a luxury car, but buying a car was a bit troublesome. In order to save trouble, Suke directly found a well-known local drug dealer, and then borrowed his super luxury car worth tens of millions of dollars. As for how he borrowed it, you have to ask the drug dealer who is lying in the hospital with fractures all over his body. When driving to Wayne Manor, Soo-K's eyes would occasionally glance at Emma in the passenger seat. The reason was that Emma's outfit today was too imaginative. It must be said that Soo-K was somewhat moved. Facing such an Emma, any man would be moved. Noticing Soo-K's glances from time to time, Emma was already very happy in her heart, but she did not show it on the surface. I say, we are not really going to the party today, do you have to dress like this? Soo-K said while looking ahead. Emma curled her lips and pretended to be unhappy and said, didn't you ask me to dress nicely? Don't I look good like this? It looks good, but I'm afraid. Forget it, it's nothing. Soo-K originally just wanted Emma to pick out a dress suitable for the party. After all, Wayne Manor is not an ordinary place, so it still needs to be more particular. However, he really didn't expect Emma to pick such a dress. He originally wanted to be low-key, but now it seems that there is no way to be low-key. Are you saying I'm beautiful? Suddenly at this moment, Emma came to Soo-K and said with pretty and charming eyes. My God, is this considered seduction? Soo-K thought. He had to admit that being seduced by a beauty like Emma was a very comfortable thing. If the current situation was not a bit inappropriate, Soo-K would definitely take Emma. However, considering what he was going to do tonight, he finally reached out his hand, then pinched Emma's chin and pushed her head aside. Stop it, we have something important to do tonight. HMPH. Upon hearing this, Emma snorted, then turned her back to look out the window and ignored Soo-K. Although she pretended to be angry on the surface, at this moment, Emma was extremely excited in her heart. Because she could see that Soo-K was already attracted to her. As for the others, there will always be opportunities. Not long after, Soo-K and Emma finally arrived at Wayne Manor, which was a magnificent European-style castle. Because of the party, even though it was already night, it was still brightly lit, with countless luxury cars parked around, and Gotham City's wealthy and celebrities everywhere. It can be seen that the name Bruce Wayne is still very appealing. In this environment, Emma's appearance instantly attracted everyone's attention. Most of the men's eyes were eager and surprised, while the women's eyes contained jealousy and anger. Soo-K was somewhat helpless, because Emma's appearance made him, a handsome alien, completely lose everyone's attention and even be ignored. This feeling is really helpless. Soo-K casually threw the car keys to the waiter beside him, and then he walked to Emma. Emma naturally took Soo-K's arm, and then, in the envious or jealous eyes of everyone, the two walked into Wayne Manor. From a distance, Soo-K suddenly saw the guard at the door checking something. After a closer look, he found that it was an invitation. This is a bit troublesome. Before coming, he didn't expect that he would need an invitation to attend the party. As if seeing what Soo-K was thinking, Emma whispered, "Don't worry, leave this to me." Even so, the two still walked towards the door. Sure enough, when they reached the door, the security guard stretched out his hand to stop them. "Hello, please show us your invitations." Soo-K glanced at Emma beside him when he heard this, and then said slowly, "Dear, isn't the invitation with you? Take it out." "Oh, sorry, I almost forgot." Emma smiled slightly, then opened the small bag she carried with her and took out a ball of air. Facing the air handed to him by Emma, the security guard actually reached out to take it. After taking a look, he immediately said respectfully, "Mr. Soo-K, Ms. Emma, welcome." Then, the door opened, and Emma walked in first with a proud look on her face. Soo-K smiled and shook his head. Telepathy, this ability really works. "Hey, Clark, look, there's another beauty over there. This beauty is much prettier and hotter than the previous ones. She's simply top-notch." In the lobby of Wayne Manor, a reporter was filming Emma, who had just walked in with a camera, and excitedly tugged at the sleeve of a man next to him. Clark Kent. If Soo-K heard this name, he would definitely be a little surprised at this moment, because this person is none other than Superman in the DC universe. Clark Kent's original name was Kal-El. He was born on Krypton. When Krypton was facing destruction, his parents sent him to Earth in a spaceship. The spaceship crashed in Smallville, Kansas, USA, and Kal was picked up by the farmer Kent and his wife. He was raised with the Earth name Clark Kent. After he grew up, Clark came to Metropolis and became a reporter for the Daily Planet. He has innate superpowers and a strong sense of justice and compassion. Whenever he is in danger, he puts on a blue tights, a red cape, and transforms into Superman. In the DC universe, Superman is recognized as the strongest hero. Clark turned around and looked at his partner speechlessly and said, "Wes, the purpose of our coming here today is not to take pictures of beautiful women, but mainly to interview Bruce Wayne." "Of course I know. Do you think I would forget such an important thing?" Wes continued to take pictures while saying, "But don't you think about who Bruce Wayne is? How could he let us little reporters interview him? It's better to take something else back. At least you won't be scolded." Hearing this, Clark was somewhat helpless, because he found that what Wes said was right. Bruce Wayne really would not accept interviews from little reporters like them. But of course, the purpose of his coming here today was not just to interview Bruce Wayne. The most important purpose was that he wanted to talk to Bruce Wayne's other identity. And this identity is Batman. Clark has super perspective eyes and can easily see through anyone's disguise, including Batman of course. But as a superhero, he has no intention of revealing Bruce Wayne's identity. He just wants to persuade Batman not to do this again. Such rough law enforcement. However, according to Batman's bad temper, Clark knew that he might not listen to his advice. Alas, thinking of this, Clark couldn't help but sigh, and then he looked at the beautiful woman that Wes had mentioned before. He needs this job now, so he must bring something back. The camera just pointed at Emma, but a young man suddenly flashed in the camera, and then naturally took Emma's hand, just one glance, and the expression on Clark's face suddenly shook. Putting down the camera in his hand, Clark gently touched Wes beside him and said, "Wes, who is the man next to that woman?" "I don't know him, but he should be some young rich man or a rich second generation. Gotham City is a chaotic city, anything can happen," Wes said, but the camera in his hand kept clicking. Clark ignored Wes and his expression suddenly became serious. Then, his eyes began to heat up, and he was using his perspective eyes. The first time he saw Sook, Clark's instinct told him that Sook could not be an ordinary person. There must be an extremely shocking secret in Sook. He needed to know what it was. But to his surprise, his perspective eyes could not see through Sook's body at all. "Is it lead?" "No, not lead. P.S. Lead can block Superman's vision. As long as he wears a mask made of lead, Superman can't see through it." Clark's face began to become serious. On the other side, Sook, who was accompanying Emma under the spotlight, also suddenly sensed something and looked over to a place not far away. In an instant, their eyes met. "This is Superman." Sensing the special aura of the other party, coupled with such an ordinary reporter's appearance, Sook guessed his identity in an instant. It must be said that this is a pleasant surprise. Sook never thought that he would meet Superman here. What a fate. "Emma, I met an acquaintance. Let me go over and say hello first," Sook whispered in Emma's ear, and then he walked straight towards Clark. Emma was a little surprised. You know, Sook is an alien, and he has never been to Gotham City. How could he meet an acquaintance here? Although she was surprised, Emma did not show it on the surface, and still faced the camera with a smile on her face. On the other side, Clark quickly put away his perspective eyes when he noticed Sook coming towards him, and then turned his head away, avoiding Sook's gaze. "Hi, hello, my name is Sook, nice to meet you." Sook smiled and stretched out his hand. Seeing that he couldn't avoid it, and he was also very curious about Sook, Clark also smiled, then put down the camera in his hand, stretched out his hand and said, "Hello, Clark Kent." Sure enough, this guy is Superman. Then, the two hands were held together. Because he knew that Clark in front of him was the strongest hero Superman of DC, and Sook really wanted to know Superman's power, Sook didn't control his strength at all when shaking hands. In an instant, Clark felt the superpower from Sook, which was a power that was almost as strong as his own. Sure enough, he was not an ordinary person, and it was very likely that he had guessed his identity. Surprised in his heart, Clark couldn't help but use his superpower in his hands. For a while, the two of them competed secretly, and their grip strength had reached 100,000 tons. And such power can easily shatter an asteroid. "You are quite strong," Sook said with a smile, but he was very excited in his heart. After all, it is not always possible to compete with Superman in strength. "You are not bad either," Clark said with a smile, but he was extremely shocked in his heart. He subconsciously thought that Suke should be of the same kind as himself, but then he instantly denied this idea, because Suke did not have the aura of his own people at all. Suk is not a Kryptonian. Of course, he is not human either. Bruce Wayne, it's Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne finally shows up. Clark, what are you still doing? Hurry up and interview Bruce Wayne. As long as he says one word to our camera, we will have successfully completed the mission. Suddenly at this moment, there was a shout not far away, and at the same time, Weiss on the side also hurriedly urged Clark. The two of them let go of their hands tacitly, and then looked at Bruce Wayne, who was slowly walking in here. Unlike comics and movies, Bruce Wayne at this time is only in his 30s, which is the time when a man is most energetic, and it is also the peak period of his body. When Suke saw a small band-aid on Bruce Wayne's forehead, he knew that Bruce Wayne must have been busy at night. After all, the riot in Blackgate Prison was already known to everyone. As the Dark Knight of Gotham City, Bruce Wayne, also known as Batman, would never ignore it. Who is it? Although Bruce Wayne's appearance was very eye-catching, Clark's attention was no longer on him. The only thing that concerned him at this moment was Suk beside him. Suk looked at Bruce Wayne, who was the focus of everyone's attention, and said with a smile, "If you talk about it carefully, we all have the same experience. Like you, I came here after the destruction of the planet, but of course, I'm not a Kryptonian." Suk's words confirmed Clark's guess. After a brief silence, Clark asked again, "What is your purpose in coming here?" "Just like you." Suke pointed at Bruce Wayne not far away and said. Also for Bruce Wayne, Clark was a little surprised. "So you already know his identity? Honey, why are you still here? The party has already started." Before Suke could speak, Emma suddenly came over and held Suke's arm. "Sorry, I really want to talk to you for a while, but I have to leave now." With a faint smile, Suke took Emma's arm and turned away. Looking at Suke's leaving figure, Clark felt his heart churning. His intuition told him that something terrible was going to happen again in this world. After walking a few steps, Emma suddenly leaned close to Suke's ear and whispered, "The man next to you just now was very strange." Suke's heart moved, and he asked softly, "What? Did you invade his mind just now?" "No, it's just a feeling, and I think it's not easy to invade his mind." Emma frowned and said, "Forget it, don't worry about him. We are not here for him this time. Let's do business first." Suke said, "In the DC universe, Superman has always been synonymous with strength, and his strength is almost unparalleled in the DC universe. But Superman also has weaknesses, such as kryptonite, the black sun, and of course magic attacks. Superman's magic resistance is almost zero, and any force attack can't cause any harm to him, but magic is the only thing he can't resist. It is also because of this that in Suke's view, Superman does not have the power to threaten himself. Although he is Superman, he is still not his opponent. As long as he wants, he can defeat Superman in minutes." After weaving through the crowd, Bruce Wayne appeared not far from Suke. It is worth mentioning that there is a man standing next to him at this moment. The iconic bald head made Suke guess his identity at once. Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor, also known as Alexander Luthor, is one of the smartest people on Earth. Brainiac calculated that he has 9th-level intelligence. He once ran for President of the United States and is the chairman of the wealthy Lex Corporation. Since the day Superman appeared, Luthor has been committed to ridding the world of the threat of this alien. According to Luthor, Superman has weakened human potential. Since then, Luthor is no longer just an ambitious man, he has become an obsessed person, constantly proving to the world that he is stronger and better than Superman and wants to destroy Superman. His initial hatred turned into jealousy of Superman, and he also had conflicts with other different heroes in the DC universe. But now it seems that Luthor should not have exposed his ambitions, otherwise he would not be drinking and talking with Bruce Wayne. "Mr. Wayne, I'm curious, what do you think of the so-called Dark Knight of Gotham City? Do you think his existence really helps Gotham City?" Luthor asked while drinking the champagne in his hand with a smile. Bruce smiled slightly and said, "I never care about this kind of thing, but in my opinion, his existence at least scares the criminals in Gotham City. This should be a good thing for Gotham City, right? What about Superman? What do you think of him? Since the battle last year, Many people have worshipped Superman as a god. Do you think he is a god? After taking a sip of champagne, Luther asked again with interest, with a cunning look in the corner of his eyes. When Bruce heard this, his face froze slightly at first, but he recovered in an instant and said calmly, "There is no God in this world. Even if there is, it will not be like that, because God will not bring a group of monsters to fight on Earth and massacre innocent people." Wow, I never thought you would say something like that, but I do have an idea. Who is more powerful, the Dark Knight of Gotham City or Superman, who is worshipped as a god by humans? Can humans defeat God? The smile on Luther's face became even stronger. The duel between man and God, the duel between the Dark Knight and the son of Krypton, this sounds interesting. Then, before Bruce could speak, a voice rang out beside him. The next second, Sook and Emma appeared beside Bruce and Luther. The battle between man and God, the battle between the Dark Knight and the son of Krypton. This sentence is good, I like it. By the way, my name is Luther. After silently repeating what Suke just said, Luther felt his eyes light up and he became somewhat interested in Suke. Hello, Sook. Sook smiled and stretched out his hand. Honey, you guys chat first, I'll go over there and take a rest. Knowing that Suke was going to do something serious, Emma immediately found an excuse to leave. Bruce stared at Emma's leaving figure, then said with admiration, "Not bad." He looked like a playboy of the rich second generation. But everyone knew that he was just pretending. By the way, Sook, from what you said just now, it seems that you are quite interested in Batman and Superman. Do you think Batman can be a match for Superman? It's not that I look down on Batman, but Superman is too powerful. He can't even hurt a hair of Superman. Luther looked at Sook and said with an exaggerated expression, completely ignoring Bruce who had an unnatural expression on his face. Sook was a little speechless at this moment, because he suddenly realized that his mission seemed a bit unnecessary. With Luther's help, Batman and Superman would have to fight. Sorry, I suddenly remembered that I have other things to take care of. Please help yourself. At this moment, Bruce suddenly smiled very stiffly, and then without waiting for Luther and Sook to say anything, he turned around and left. Luther pretended to be helpless and looked at Sook and said, "Really, what's wrong with that guy? I'm talking about Batman, not him. Just keep pretending." Sook sneered in his heart. Luther was really too insidious. He knew that Bruce was Batman, but he was still pretending to be ignorant. Etc. I think I found another amazing guy. I didn't expect to see him here. The next second, Luther's eyes suddenly lit up, and without saying a word, he walked towards Clark not far away. Obviously, he was going to provoke Clark. But his departure was a good thing for Sook, because Sook really couldn't stand a villain like Luther, even though he was very smart. After sitting down next to Emma and taking a sip of champagne, Sook asked, "How is it? What did you find out?" Emma was a smart woman, and she knew that Sook would not just find someone to chat with for no reason, so she had already started to use telepathy to check Bruce and Luther. "I never thought that Bruce Wayne, the Prince of Gotham and the heir of Wayne Enterprises, would be Batman," Emma said in surprise, as if she couldn't accept it. "If you are shocked by this, it is too early." Suke smiled and said, "Do you remember the reporter who just chatted with me?" "Remember? What's wrong?" Emma asked curiously. "Like Batman, he also has another identity. He is Superman, the son of Krypton." "What?" Emma was a little surprised when she heard this, but then she thought of something and suddenly realized, no wonder my telepathy has no effect on him. Gotham City is much more lively than I thought. If I'm not mistaken, there will definitely be a fight between Batman and Superman. After finishing the champagne in the glass, Suke said again. Is this possible? No matter how strong Batman is, he is just a human being, while Superman is a powerful alien. The power between them is not equal at all, and there is no way they can fight. Emma said with some disbelief. Seeing this, Suke didn't want to explain anything anymore, because not only Emma, almost everyone who heard about this would not believe that Batman would defeat Superman. But the final result will prove everything. Man can defeat God. Standing up again and tidying up his clothes, Suke said again, "Where did Bruce go when he left just now?" "It seems to be a place called the Bat Cave, which is located under Wayne Manor," Emma said in a low voice. "Very good, I will go talk to him now, you wait here for me." After saying this, Suke turned and left. With super speed, Suke quietly came to a bedroom in Wayne Manor. The bedroom was empty, with only a bonfire burning in the fireplace. I don't know if the switch to the Batcave is here, and whether it is the same as in the movie. According to the descriptions in the Batman movies he had seen in his previous life, Suke found a button on the cabinet beside him and pressed it gently. Then, the still burning fireplace suddenly rose up, and then an elevator appeared in front of Suke. Very good. It is exactly the same as in the movie. With a slight smile, Suke raised his leg and walked in. Originally, with Suke's ability, it would not be so troublesome to go to the Batcave. He could just punch open a passage. However, considering that this is Batman's secret base, he finally decided to use peaceful means to solve the matter. If Batman is unwilling to hand over the space gem, then there is no way. Suke can only use force. As long as he wants it, he will get it. Anyone who dares to stand in front of him will become his enemy. Thinking of this, Suke suddenly felt happy again. He seems to be more and more like a villain. At the same time, in the Batcave, Bruce was meditating in front of an open safe. Inside the safe was the space stone that had been stolen from S.H.I.E.L.D. Suke was right, Batman did want to use the space stone to deal with Superman. Last year, General Zod and the remaining Kryptonians invaded the Earth and destroyed half of the buildings in Gotham City. Even in the battle between Superman and General Zod, the Wayne building was destroyed, which directly led to the death of hundreds of his employees. Although this was not his responsibility, he still fell into deep self-blame for it. General Zod was dead, and he could not hold a dead man responsible, but he absolutely could not tolerate that Superman, who had done all this to Gotham City, was still worshipped as a superhero or even a god. In his opinion, Superman was not a god, but a devil who fell from the sky and brought disaster to the earth. He wanted to kill the devil, but he could not do such a thing with human power alone. He needed to rely on other powers, and then he stole the space stone. However, it is true that he got the space stone, but he had no idea how to use it, and the space stone could not be touched directly. He once did an experiment with a mouse, and the mouse was decomposed in an instant. He just got something that he could not use. Thinking back to what Luthor had said before, Batman felt powerless. Is it true that humans cannot defeat God? You can't tell for sure. Suddenly, at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in the darkness not far away, making Batman feel like he was facing a formidable enemy. Who is it? Batman shouted, then picked up the bat knife on the table and threw it over. Hey, Bruce, you are really a forgetful person. Didn't we just meet? Is it necessary to greet each other like this? This suit is very expensive. In the darkness, Suke walked out slowly, holding the bat knife thrown by Batman before. It's you. Bruce was a little surprised. He didn't expect to see Suke here. But then he thought of something and said with a cold look, "Who are you and how do you know this place?" Don't be nervous. Suke smiled first, then casually pulled over a stool and sat down, looking at Bruce with a playful look on his face and said, "First of all, I want to ask, should I call you Bruce Wayne or Batman now?" Sure enough, this man not only knows his secret base, he also knows that he is Batman. Tell me, what do you want? Bruce is a smart man. He knows that Suke must have come here not just to talk to him. He doesn't like beating around the bush and goes straight to the point. He is indeed a smart man. With a slight smile, Suke pointed at the space gem in the safe next to Bruce and said, "You took something that doesn't belong to you, and I'm here to take it back." Are you from S.H.I.E.L.D.? Bruce was a little surprised. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing to do with S.H.I.E.L.D., I'm just myself. Suke said calmly, I got this thing from S.H.I.E.L.D. If you were from S.H.I.E.L.D., then maybe I would consider giving it back to you, but you are not from S.H.I.E.L.D. at all, why should I give it to you? And I still have a use for this thing, so I'm sorry I can't do it. Bruce said as he suddenly rolled over, then took the rifle from the weapon rack beside him, and then pointed it at Suke. Don't waste bullets, Suke said helplessly, bullets can't hurt me at all. All the weapons you have here can't cause me any harm, and I don't want to fight you. Besides, although the space stone has great power, its power is more precisely used to open the channel between the universe. It can't help you defeat Superman at all. If you really want to defeat Superman, wouldn't it be better to use kryptonite directly? Use kryptonite to make bullets or spears and directly penetrate Superman's heart. How simple is that? Kryptonite. When Batman heard this, he looked confused, as if he didn't know what the kryptonite that Sook was talking about was. Seeing that Batman didn't seem to be pretending, Suke was slightly surprised and thought, could it be that Batman doesn't know about kryptonite yet? Chapter 31. Then, Batman's words completely confirmed Sook's idea. What exactly is this kryptonite you're talking about? Can it really kill Superman? Batman said excitedly. His breathing was a little rapid. Sure enough, this guy really didn't know kryptonite. Although he was a little helpless, Suke still explained, kryptonite is a special mineral produced from krypton. It is harmless to humans, but it is fatal to Kryptonians. When Kryptonians touch kryptonite, they will lose all their superpowers and even be worse than an ordinary human. If kryptonite is used to make bullets, even Superman will die. Batman became more and more excited. He slowly threw the rifle aside and said, "So, do you have kryptonite?" "Of course I don't. What do I need that thing for? It's not me who wants to fight Superman. Besides, I don't need kryptonite to fight Superman." Suke couldn't help but complain in his heart. But then, he suddenly realized a problem. What if Batman can't find kryptonite? After all, kryptonite is so rare and widely distributed. It could be on the bottom of the ocean, in the Grand Canyon, or even in a volcano. It would be fine if Batman found it, but if he can't find it, how can he fight Superman? If he doesn't fight, how can he complete his mission? And the Justice League was established after Superman and Batman fought. If these two guys don't fight, how can the Justice League be established? Are you asking me to get kryptonite? How would I know where to find kryptonite? That's right. If you have any problems, look for the system. Thinking of this, Suke didn't hesitate at all, and hurriedly asked in his mind, "Hey, system, do you have kryptonite?" Soon, the system responded. "Of course there is, host, please take a look." In an instant, Suke felt a flash before his eyes, and then the system's shopping interface appeared in front of him, showing kryptonite. However, after taking a look at the price of kryptonite, Suke's eyelids jumped. Kryptonite was actually sold by gram. 1 gram was worth 1,000 villain points. With his current points, he could only buy 20 grams. This price is so expensive. Suke couldn't help but complain in his heart. Ding! The price of this system is reasonable and fair. Please do not slander it. Is this fair? If the system has a physical body, Suke will definitely slap him a few times. Although the price of kryptonite is a bit rip-off, Suke feels relieved when he thinks of the points he gets after completing the task. You are so cruel, exchange all your points for kryptonite. Then, Suke felt as if there was something extra in his hand. He took it and saw that it was a green kryptonite, but it was a little smaller, not even as big as a ping-pong ball. Is this kryptonite? Seeing that Sook didn't answer his question, but suddenly took out a stone emitting green light, Batman guessed it at once. That's right, this is kryptonite. If you want to defeat Superman, this thing is much better than the space stone. Take the kryptonite, and give me the space stone. Suke said with some pain. He exchanged all the 20,000 villain points he had saved with great difficulty for kryptonite with Batman. This was really like going back to the days before liberation overnight. Deal. Batman stole the space stone just to defeat Superman. If the space stone can't help him defeat Superman, then what's the difference between it and garbage? It's worth it to exchange the space stone for the kryptonite that can defeat Superman. Throwing the kryptonite in his hand to Batman, Suke came to the safe and took out the space stone. However, the space stone at this time cannot be called the space stone. It is more accurate to call it the cosmic cube, because the real space stone is inside it. With a light pinch, the cosmic cube shattered, and then a blue gem appeared in Suke's hand. This is the real space stone. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the space gem. Mission reward: 500,000 points and a chance to draw a lottery. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully arranging a duel between Superman and Batman. Mission reward: 500,000 points and a chance to draw a lottery. The moment he got the space gem, the system's voice rang in Suke's mind again. Suke was somewhat surprised. He originally thought that the mission reward for the duel between Superman and Batman should be issued when they were fighting, but he didn't expect it to be issued at this moment. Looking up, Suke found that Batman's temperament had changed at this moment, and his eyes were full of fanaticism. Suke knew in his heart that after getting the kryptonite, Batman would definitely go to Superman. Staring at the points displayed on the interface, Suke just felt funny. Just now, his points were almost all cleared, but now he has 1 million system points and 2 chances to draw a lottery. I have to say that this trip to Gotham City is really worth it. The space gem has been obtained, and the battle between Batman and Superman is inevitable. There is no point in staying here, and Suke is ready to leave. But of course, this time he is going to use the power of the space gem. The space gem is an uncontrollable force for humans, but it is a piece of cake for a Titan. With a thought, the space gem in Suke's body was sensed, and an elliptical space channel was formed in an instant, and at the end of the space channel, it was a corridor of Wayne Manor. Before leaving, Suke originally wanted to say hello to Batman, but he didn't expect that Batman had already started studying kryptonite at this time, and didn't notice that he wanted to leave. It can be seen that he really wants to defeat Superman. Seeing this, Suke was too lazy to say anything else. He just stepped in. In an instant, he appeared in Wayne Manor again. Passing through the corridor, Suke appeared in front of him the party that was still going on. Suke glanced around and found that Superman and Luthor had left for some reason. It seemed that Luthor must have successfully fooled Superman. In any case, the mission in Gotham City was successfully completed, and it was time to leave this place of trouble. Seeing Suke walking towards her, Emma stood up and asked, "How is it? Did you get the things?" Suke nodded, stretched out his hand to take the wine glass from Emma's hand, and then drank it all and said, "We have got the things, and we have done what we should do. Let's go back." "Don't." Unexpectedly, Emma became a little anxious after hearing this. "What's wrong?" Suke asked curiously. "What else do you have to do here?" "No, but I had drunk a lot of wine before, and my head was a little dizzy, and it was so late now, I thought. Can we stay here for one night before leaving?" Emma said with a blush on her face. In Emma's opinion, if Suke went back, he would definitely continue to be with Chin, and then she would have no chance to get along with Suke. Such a thing made her feel uncomfortable just thinking about it. Well then, Suke did not refuse Emma's request, and he felt that something wonderful might happen tonight. Soon, the two left Wayne Manor and drove to the largest hotel in Gotham City. Seeing Suke and Emma coming together, the front desk clerk naturally thought they were a couple, so they only issued them one room card, and it was a couple suite. When she walked into the room, Emma was really scared and excited. You know, over the years, although she has been used by others most of the time, no one has ever touched her, and now she is just a girl. She is not afraid of what Suke will do to her, but what Suke will not do to her. Because long before, she had decided that Suke was the only man in her life, no matter if he was human or not. If Suke did something to her tonight, it would mean that she had a place in Suke's heart. If she did nothing tonight, then Emma didn't know what to do in the future. Feeling scared yet excited, Emma finished her bath nervously, and then came to the bedroom with a flushed face. Looking at the now empty room, Emma felt as if someone had poured a basin of cold water over her head. He actually left. In this case, he actually left. It seems that I was just being sentimental. He doesn't like me at all and doesn't care about my feelings at all. For a moment, Emma felt as if her heart was being cut by a knife, and tears were dripping down her cheeks. She even felt that she had no hope of living. "Hey, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying all of a sudden?" But at this moment, Emma felt two hands on her shoulders, and then Suke's voice rang out. Emma looked up in surprise, and saw that the person who appeared in front of him at this moment was not Suke. Who else could it be? "You, where did you go just now?" Emma shouted aggrievedly, ignoring the tears in her eyes. Suke said somewhat helplessly, "I didn't go anywhere. I just sat on the sofa to rest." What? Emma felt even more aggrieved when she heard this. But before she could cry again, a figure approached her. Suke is not a fool. He naturally knows Emma's feelings for him. It's just that he didn't have time to express his love to Emma before in order to get the space gem. But now that the space gem is in his hands, he no longer hides his feelings. At this moment, looking at the man in front of her who she has chosen to spend her life with, Emma felt that the grievance in her heart suddenly disappeared without a trace, and instead, there was only a full sense of happiness. You can only be my woman. Then, Emma's mind was filled with the words Suke had just said in her ear. Then, there is a different scene. After a long time, Suke drank red wine with a comfortable look on his face, while Emma beside him had already fallen asleep. However, she must be very happy to see that she was hiding something. No matter what role Emma played in the X-Men before, or what kind of person she would only be Suke's woman in the future. No one except Suke could have any idea about her. After drinking the red wine, Suke still didn't feel sleepy at all, so he simply stopped sleeping and took the space gem in his hand and started playing with it. Now that the space gem is in hand, Suke should also consider what to do next. According to the system's task, the next step should be to help Loki invade the Earth and then start the Battle of New York. It was at this time that the Avengers began to be established. Although according to the timeline, this will happen in about 2 years, but with the fusion of the two worlds of Marvel and DC, the timeline has been changed, and many things have also changed. The Battle of New York is likely to happen ahead of time. Suke didn't think that helping Loki invade the Earth was a bad thing, because no matter which timeline it was destined to happen and no one could change it. This was the main line of the Marvel world. Without this main line, I'm afraid the Marvel world would cease to exist. But then again, the space gem was already in Suke's hands. Suke didn't intend to hand the space gem over to anyone, but according to the system's task, he had to help Loki invade the Earth, which made Suke a little embarrassed. It was indeed a very troublesome thing to help Loki invade the Earth, but not to hand over the space gem to Loki. At this moment, Suke's heart suddenly moved again. It was certain that he couldn't hand over the space gem to others, but what if the one handed over was a fake? And it was a fake that could be used. With this idea in mind, Suke immediately asked in his heart, "System, do you have a replica of the space gem?" "Of course there is, host, please take a look." With the sound of the system mall appeared in front of Suke again. What was displayed on it was the space gem, or in other words, a high imitation space gem. Under the high imitation space gem, there was actually a line of text explaining. High imitation space gem, 100% complete imitation, contains a small amount of cosmic energy, can open the cosmic channel once. That's it. Suke was delighted. Although this imitation space gem can only open the cosmic channel once, it is enough for him to complete the task assigned by the system. And it completely meets his requirements. Although the price is a bit of a rip-off, it requires 300,000 system points, but compared with the real space gem, such a small number of points is really not worth mentioning. This is it. Without any hesitation, Suke immediately exchanged for the high imitation space gem. Although this thing is very cheap, it is enough to achieve his goal. Anyway, he will never take out the real space gem. In this case, he can only use this fake one to make up the number. Moreover, Suke is not very interested in the Battle of New York, because he already knows the result of this war. Loki can't make any big waves at all. At most, he can only destroy some buildings. But of course, it is also because of this war that the Avengers were established. Then, a space gem with a light blue glow appeared in Suke's hand, and it still looked like a cosmic cube. It seemed that the system was still very user-friendly. Staring at the high imitation space gem in front of him, Suke smiled knowingly, because he found that the system was right. This high imitation space gem was indeed no different from the real space gem, both in appearance and the energy it emitted was exactly the same. The only difference was the real power contained inside it. The real space gem had infinite space power, while this high imitation space gem only had a small amount of space power and could only open a cosmic channel once. After using it, he would completely disappear. But obviously, this was enough. As for how to deal with this high imitation space gem, Suke also had his own plan. He was going to give S.H.I.E.L.D. a face and return this high imitation space gem to S.H.I.E.L.D., because if he handed the space gem to Loki, it would really make him a little bit painful. Although this matter had to be done, he felt that there was no need to do it himself. It would be better to let S.H.I.E.L.D. do it, and he would just watch from the dark. Loki would eventually go to S.H.I.E.L.D. to steal the space stone anyway. Then again, the space stone has been obtained, but how to preserve it? After all, you can't always hold it in your hand, right? Although props like the Infinity Gauntlet look cool, who the hell would wear an iron gauntlet all day long when they have nothing to do? When he thought of this, Suke was speechless again, because he suddenly remembered that it seemed that his brother did the same thing. System, do you have anything here that can store infinite gems? It would be best if it could not be seen by others, but I can continue to use it. With the idea of finding the system when there is trouble, Suke asked again in his mind. As soon as he finished speaking, the system's voice rang. The host can store the infinite gems obtained in the system space. The system space is closely connected to the host. Even if the infinite gems are placed in it, the host can still use them as usual. What? Suke was confused. I have another system space. Why the hell didn't I know about it? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Suke was a little angry. He didn't know about this until now. You didn't ask, the system said a little aggrievedly. Suke was speechless. Next, following the guidance of the system, Suke opened his own system space, which was a 10 meters large square space that could store anything, even living things, and Suke had absolute control over it. Although he was a little unhappy that the system did not inform him in advance that there was such an awesome space, Suke was quite satisfied with the result. Next, it was time to draw the lottery. After completing 2 tasks, Suke got 2 chances to draw the lottery, but he didn't have time to draw the lottery at that time. Anyway, he couldn't sleep at this moment, so he just drew the lottery. System, I want to draw a lottery. As soon as he finished speaking, a huge disc for drawing a lottery appeared in front of him, with various prizes densely marked on it. I must draw something good. Even though this was not Suke's first time drawing a lottery, Suke was still a little excited. After a while of silent thinking, Suke used his mind to turn the lottery disc. Then, the disc began to rotate rapidly, and it stopped after a long time. Ding! Congratulations to the host for drawing the Super Healing Serum. Super Healing Serum. What is this? In Suke's puzzled eyes, a tube of pure blue liquid suddenly appeared in his hand. Looking closely, there was a line of notes below. Super Healing Serum can cure any disease or physical injury. As long as the treated creature is not dead, it can be healed instantly. This thing looks pretty cool, but it seems to be useless to me. Not to mention that no one in this world can hurt me, even if I am really injured, the self-healing factor in my body can automatically repair it in an instant. This thing is really a bit redundant. Suke thought a little disappointedly. But in the next second, he was suddenly stunned again. Although this thing is useless to him, it seems to be very useful to one person. This person is none other than Professor X. With this super healing serum, Professor X, who has been confined to a wheelchair all his life, can stand up again. Professor X is the first person who truly accepts Suke after he came to Earth, so Suke has decided to give this super self-healing serum to Professor X. Let's continue the lottery, Suke said again after putting the super healing serum into the system space. Then, the disc started to rotate quickly again, and it stopped after a long while. Ding! Congratulations to the host for winning the Infinity Gauntlet. Infinity Gauntlet, are you sure? Then, in Suke's extremely shocked eyes, a pair of special metal gloves suddenly appeared in his hands. Upon closer inspection, it was actually the Infinity Gauntlet. But of course, this was just a glove without the Infinity Gems. To be precise, it was just a prop that carried the Infinity Gems. What the hell? Looking at the Infinity Gauntlet in his hand, Suke was extremely upset. He really didn't expect that he would actually draw this thing. After putting the Infinity Gauntlet on his hand and moving around a little, Suke immediately looked disgusted because he was really uncomfortable. The reason why Thanos wanted the Infinity Gauntlet was because the Infinity Gauntlet could help him gather the power of the 5 Infinity Stones, but the system now has the system space, and the system space can also help Suke gather the power of the Infinity Stones, so this Infinity Gauntlet is really of no use to Suke. But then again, this thing is a treasure no matter what, so let's keep it first. Thinking of this, Suke also threw the Infinity Gauntlet into the system space. In the Marvel Universe, there is not only one Infinity Gauntlet. When the Dwarf King helped Thanos forge the Infinity Gauntlet, he actually forged several, so Suke's possession of the Infinity Gauntlet and Thanos' possession of the Infinity Gauntlet did not conflict. It was already midnight, and after finishing all the things, Suke finally felt a little sleepy at this moment. After lying down gently, he reached out and hugged Emma's soft and graceful body in his arms, and then he fell asleep. The next morning, when Suke just opened his eyes, he saw Emma staring at him with a smile on her face. Her face was flushed and her eyes were filled with excitement. She only used a piece of gauze to cover her important parts, which made her look even more charming. "Wake up, what do you want to eat? I'll ask someone to prepare it," Emma said shyly. "No need, eating you is enough." After saying this, Suke pressed Emma under him again amidst her shy exclamation. "By the time we finished the rest, it was already noon. Things in Gotham City have been dealt with, so where should we go next?" Emma asked while putting on her clothes and looking at Suk, who was lying on the bed. Suk thought about it for a while, then said, "Let's go to S.H.I.E.L.D. first, I have some things to deal with there, and then go to the mutant school, I have something to give to Professor X." "What, are you going back to the mutant school?" Emma asked in surprise. Suke shook his head and said, "I'm just going to give something to Professor X, and then I'll say goodbye to them. Although the mutant school is a good place, it's not suitable for people like me." What about that girl?" Emma said, her tone suddenly became a little unnatural. Because in her opinion, Suk and Chin were the real couple, and she just showed up halfway. If Suk saw Chin again, would he forget her again? Suk was not a fool, he understood what Emma meant at once, and smiled helplessly at first. Then he got out of bed and walked to Emma, then hugged her tightly in his arms and said, "Don't worry, Chin's existence will not affect my feelings for you. You are my woman, and you can only be my woman. In this life, except following me, don't think about going anywhere else." Emma's face turned red again when she heard this. At this moment, she finally had no worries. She raised her head and took the initiative to put her mouth up, and then the two kissed again, unable to separate for a long time. However, considering that there were still things to do, Suke did not push Emma again. Soon, everything was ready. Holding Emma's hand, Suke's mind moved, and the space gem in the system space was sensed, and a space channel opened in front of him instantly. And at the other end of the space channel was S.H.I.E.L.D. Emma was no longer surprised by such situations, because anything could happen around Suk. However, when Suk brought Emma across the space channel to S.H.I.E.L.D., S.H.I.E.L.D. was completely stunned by the appearance of Suk and Emma. "What's going on? Someone's hacking. Alert, alert, go to level 1 alert. Who are you? Put your hands up." As the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. was in complete chaos, some agents equipped with weapons had surrounded Suk and Emma, pointing their guns at them. Suk was a little speechless. Wasn't the previous lesson enough? Hey, what are you doing? Put your guns away, put them away, they are not enemies, lift the first level alert. Get out of my way. Just when Suke was considering whether to teach these guys a lesson, a man in a black leather jacket suddenly rushed out from the side, then stood in front of him, shouting at the agents. Needless to say, this man is Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. The agents dared not disobey the boss's order, and put away their weapons and stepped aside. He took a deep breath and forced a smile on his face. Nick Fury turned his head and looked at Suke with a smile on his face and said, "I'm sorry, because most of the previous agents were injured, we have activated some new agents, and these agents don't know you, so this caused a misunderstanding, please don't take it to heart." After saying this, Nick Fury thought of something again, and then shouted to the agents around him, "Open your eyes and look, this person is a friend of S.H.I.E.L.D. I now give him the highest authority. He can enter and leave S.H.I.E.L.D. at will, and no one can stop him. Do you understand?" "Got it, sir. Got it, sir. Got it, sir." Then, there was a neat response. After doing all this, Nick Fury looked at Suk again. Although he had a faint smile on his face, he was actually very nervous. After all, the man in front of him could destroy the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. with just his own momentum. He didn't want what happened before to happen again. Suke said nothing, but walked to the window. After looking around, he realized that he was on the S.H.I.E.L.D. space carrier. "What happened? Didn't I just destroy your aircraft carrier the day before yesterday? How come it was repaired so quickly?" Suke asked in surprise. "Of course not." Nick Fury heard this and said with a bitter face, "The previous aircraft carrier is completely unusable and can only be treated as scrap. This one is a spare." So that's it. Hearing this, Sook nodded thoughtfully. Realizing that Sook really had no hostility, Nick Fury asked cautiously again, Mr. Sook, I wonder what brought you to S.H.I.E.L.D. today? Sook's existence is like a super nuclear bomb that can explode at any time. Nick Fury is so scared that he just wants to send Sook away quickly. Sook didn't say much. With a thought, the high imitation space gem exchanged from the system appeared in his hand. Actually, it's nothing, I just got the space stone, so I want to return it to you. Seeing the space stone in Sook's hand, Nick Fury was instantly shocked. When Sook finished speaking, he was even more surprised. This is obviously wrong. The reason why Sook destroyed the S.H.I.E.L.D.'s aerospace carrier before was largely to get this space stone, and then he went to Gotham City for the space stone. Now that he has finally got the space stone, he actually wants to return it to S.H.I.E.L.D. This is really a bit unscientific. Confused, Nick Fury asked again, I don't quite understand what you mean. Since you wanted to get the space stone before, why did you return it to us after you got it? Why else? Of course it was to let Loki steal it. Sook murmured in his heart, but smiled on the surface. If you have to say it, just regard it as a kind of compensation. Besides, I think it's more appropriate to keep such things in S.H.I.E.L.D. At this moment, Nick Fury was so moved that he almost cried. With Sook's words, Nick Fury couldn't be polite anymore. However, humans cannot touch the space stone directly, because humans can't control the space stone at all. Thinking of this, Nick Fury couldn't help but look at Sook again, only to see that Sook was holding the space stone with his bare hands, and there was nothing wrong with it. This is the difference. Then, with his order, an agent soon brought a box specially for the space stone. When Sook put the space stone into the box, Nick Fury was relieved. Hi, Sook, I didn't expect to see you here. Suddenly at this moment, a familiar voice came from not far away. Sook looked up and found that it was Spider-Man, and standing next to him was Connors, who had returned to human form. Professor Connors, this is Sook, whom I mentioned to you before. He's a very powerful guy. Spider-Man introduced Connors as he walked. Connors walked up to Sook, extended his right hand in a friendly manner and said, Hello, nice to meet you. Thank you for stopping me before. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I would have hurt more people. You're welcome. After politely shaking hands with Connors, Sook looked at Spider-Man and said, How come you are here with Professor Connors? Spider-Man didn't want S.H.I.E.L.D. to find Professor Connors before, because he thought S.H.I.E.L.D. might hurt or imprison Professor Connors, so Sook didn't expect to see him here. Hearing this, Spider-Man sighed helplessly and said, After we broke up that day, I went to the place where I hid Professor Connors before, but I didn't expect that Professor Connors had been found by S.H.I.E.L.D. at that time. I had no choice but to follow him here. Don't worry, we just want to help Professor Connors return to normal. We have no intention of hurting or imprisoning him. You can confirm this with Professor Connors. Nick Fury hurriedly said again, worried that Spider-Man would say something wrong and make Sook unhappy. Professor Connors nodded and said, He is right, I am not a prisoner here, and the equipment here is more complete than anywhere else. I can do my research better here. Sook nodded slightly, but he was a little surprised in his heart, because such a plot reminded him of the story of Ultimate Spider-Man. In this story, Professor Connors works for S.H.I.E.L.D., and Spider-Man also appeared here as a student of S.H.I.E.L.D. I have to say, the world is really wonderful. After saying goodbye to Nick Fury and Spider-Man, Sook brought Emma to Stark Tower again. As soon as he entered the door, Sook saw Red Tank lying comfortably on a specially made huge sofa. In front of him were pizzas and beer. Not far away, Tony was looking at all this with a headache. I have to say that Red Tank's performance in the past 2 days was still very good, and he did help Tony a lot, but this guy was too big, and he was clumsy, destroying a lot of precious equipment, and even directly treating Tony's office as his own home, which gave Tony a headache. Seeing Sook from a distance, Tony seemed to have seen a savior and shouted, My God, you are finally back. Well, I can finally hand this guy over to you. Red Tank stood up stupidly, then picked up a pizza and said, Boss, do you want some? No, eat it yourself. Sook and Emma shook their heads almost at the same time. Who would have an appetite when seeing the way Red Tank was eating? I'm going back to the mutant school later, do you want to go with me? After finding a relatively clean place to sit down, Suke looked at Red Tank, who was madly stuffing pizza into his mouth, and asked. No. Red Tank shook his head like a rattle. There's food, sleep, and trash here. I like it here. I don't want to go to a mutant school. Iron Man's face turned green when he heard this. After 2 days in New York City, Red Tank really enjoyed this kind of life. As a villain before, he was either thinking about doing bad things or avoiding being hunted by S.H.I.E.L.D. Even if he had money, he had no time to enjoy life. But since following S.H.I.E.L.D. not only stopped bothering him, but also took the initiative to withdraw his wanted order. Of course, this was also related to his previous help. Anyway, living in New York City, he has food and sleep, and he can even smash Tony Stark's house when he has nothing to do. He doesn't want to go back to the mutant school. Because once he gets there, he will see Wolverine's stinky face. Sook is a little helpless, but at the same time he also feels that this is a good thing. After all, Red Tank is really not suitable for life in a mutant school. Emma, what do you think? Then, Sook looked at Emma again. Emma's face changed slightly at first, and then she said, I can't go there either. I did that to the mutants before, they will not forgive me, I'd better wait for you here. Although Loki was the mastermind behind the incident in which Emma and Red Tank hurt the mutants, Emma always felt extremely guilty, and Sook's several persuasions were useless. But thinking that he was about to move to New York City, Sook finally nodded. Well, since neither of you want to go, then just wait for me here. I'll come back to see you when I'm done with things over there. Etc. Tony said with a headache. You don't want to keep him here, do you? To be honest, I'm really busy recently, and this guy will only cause me trouble. He has destroyed my high-end equipment worth millions of dollars. It was definitely a good thing for Tony that Red Tank could turn over a new leaf. Tony even added Red Tank to the Avengers candidate list, but this guy was too difficult to control. He didn't listen to anyone except Sook, which gave Tony a headache. Sook didn't say anything, but suddenly walked to a desk not far away. On the desk, there were densely packed notes with various equations. Not far away, Jarvis seemed to be simulating various equations. Seeing that Sook seemed to be interested, Tony explained, this is what I have been doing recently. I discovered a new element, but this element cannot be synthesized with human knowledge and technology. But I have never given up and kept repeating the experiment, but unfortunately there is still no result. At the end of the words, Tony was a little disappointed. Sook didn't say anything, still staring at the various equations on the table. With the knowledge of the Eternal Clan, Sook almost completely understood the basic structure of this element in an instant. Without any extra nonsense, Sook immediately picked up a pen and wrote a brand new equation on a blank piece of paper. Tony looked curiously, not knowing what Sook was doing. But when he took a quick glance and roughly understood the content of the equation, he suddenly felt unwell. How is that possible? How did you do it? Tony was a little dumbfounded. The equation that he had been studying for several months and couldn't figure out was actually figured out by Sook in less than a minute. He threw the pen on the table, and then took the equation in his hand. Sook smiled and said, You said before that this element cannot be completed with human knowledge and technology, but I'm sorry, I'm not a human, and my knowledge is not comparable to that of humans. Tony was a little anxious at this time, and hurriedly said, Yes, 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 everything you said is right, now give me the equation quickly, let me study it. Don't worry, Sook said calmly, this thing is not given to you for free. If you want it, you have to help me look after Red Tank. No problem, Tony agreed without hesitation, but then he thought of something and added, but I also have a small request, that is, you have to make him obedient. Deal. With a slight smile, Sook handed the equation in his hand to Tony. Jarvis, stop and start simulating this new equation. I feel like we're about to succeed. The moment he got the equation, Iron Man shouted excitedly. Next, Tony began to study the new equation with excitement, while Red Tank was still enjoying his pizza. Looking at the two guys, Sook smiled speechlessly and shook his head, then left with Emma. Where to go next? Emma asked. Red Tank, let him live with Tony for the time being. I feel relieved that Tony is watching over him. Since you don't want to go to the mutant school, I have to find a place for you to live, right? Sook said with a smile. He did not use the power of the space gem, but walked out of the Stark building with Emma. After all, it was daytime and in the bustling city of New York, Sook did not want to attract attention. But just as they walked out of the Stark building, a black car suddenly appeared in front of them, and then a man in a black suit walked down. "Hello, Mr. Sook. I am Agent Carl from S.H.I.E.L.D. Our director wants to discuss something important with you, so let me come and invite you," the man in the suit said, showing his ID. Sook was curious. Didn't he just come back from S.H.I.E.L.D.? Why did Nick Fury come to see him again? Did he find out that the space gem was fake? Impossible. The high imitation space gem exchanged from the System Mall is exactly the same as the real one in appearance and energy. They should not be able to tell the difference, right? He is not from S.H.I.E.L.D. Suddenly at this moment, Emma's voice rang in Sook's mind. He turned his head slightly and saw Emma looking at him with a smile on her face, but there was a hint of something else in her eyes. Needless to say, Emma must have used her telepathic ability to probe the other person's thoughts. If he is not from S.H.I.E.L.D., then who could he be? This is a bit interesting. Thinking of this, Sook said to Emma, "Emma, S.H.I.E.L.D. wants to talk to me about something. I'll go there and will be back soon. You go up first." Okay. Emma understood what Sook meant instantly. In order not to cause trouble for Sook, she agreed immediately, then turned around and walked into Stark building again. Then, Sook got in the car started, and then left Stark building. Along the way, the driver didn't speak, and Sook was too lazy to speak. He was just a little curious, who would pretend to be S.H.I.E.L.D. to find him? Bang! Suddenly at this moment, the whole car body shook violently, as if it was hit by something. Almost instantly, the agent who was driving in front suddenly opened the car door and jumped out. The next second, boom, a huge explosion sounded, and the car Sook was riding in was suddenly blown into pieces. There is no doubt that this was an assassination. On the rooftop not far away, a sniper saw all this through a telescope and immediately shouted into the intercom, "Report, the target has been bombed, and the ground team has begun to check." Then, around the exploded vehicle, a large group of heavily armed soldiers suddenly emerged and approached the exploded vehicle step by step. "Boss, this car has been blown up like this. Even an Iron Man inside would be destroyed. Is it necessary to check it?" A soldier looked at the captain in front of him and asked quietly. "Shut up," the captain shouted. "According to the intelligence above, the target this time is not an ordinary human. It was him who destroyed the S.H.I.E.L.D.'s aerospace carrier before. Don't be careless." Hearing this, the soldier was a little surprised for a moment, and then raised the machine gun in his hand with a serious face. At some point, this originally very busy road was empty, with only a burning car and a group of heavily armed soldiers. "Boss, no one. There's nothing in it." After finally getting close to the burning vehicle, the soldiers were stunned. At this moment, there was nothing in the car. How could this happen? He was clearly in it just now. Everyone was surprised, wondering what was going on. "Hey, are you looking for me?" But at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded not far away. Everyone looked back and saw that the person who was talking was not Sook. And Sook was holding a man dressed like them, who was the sniper who had ambushed on the rooftop before. What was going on? For a moment, everyone was a little confused. You know, Sook was clearly in the car just now. How could he get out of the car in an instant and then go to the rooftop thousands of meters away to catch their people? This is not right. Or, this man is not right. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Without the slightest hesitation, the captain gave the order to shoot, and then a burst of gunfire rang out. Bang, bang, bang. Don't. The sniper in Sook's hand was about to shout something, but was suddenly thrown out by Sook, and was instantly shot into a sieve, dead as hell. The next second, countless bullets shot at Sook, penetrated Sook's clothes, and then bounced off. "I could have been more merciful to you, because I still have something to ask you, but now, you better die." Amidst the hail of bullets, Sook suddenly revealed a fierce smile on his face, with murderous intent rising in his heart. The bullet shot into his eyes, but it did not affect his vision at all, but only made him more angry. It was an indisputable fact that the other party wanted to kill him. Although they could not do it, their intentions had already made Sook sentence them to death. "You, all of you will die." After saying this, Suke instantly moved behind the two soldiers and then suddenly grabbed their necks. With just a slight pull, their heads and cervical vertebrae were instantly pulled out. The bodies fell to the ground weakly, and the internal organs inside flowed out. Seeing this scene, everyone else present gasped. Even though they had killed countless people, this cruel method was simply unprecedented. It was something that only the devil would do. Another mutant, seeing that the bullets had no effect on Suk, a soldier cursed angrily, then pulled a grenade from his waist, pulled the fuse, and threw it directly at Suk. Boom! He calculated the time very accurately. The grenade exploded as soon as it touched Suk, and there was a burst of bangs in an instant. Yeah, I killed this guy. Seeing this, the soldier who threw the grenade just now shouted excitedly. But then, he found something wrong, because the sound of the explosion should be continuous, but the sound just now was just a short muffled sound. This is a bit wrong, and at this time, the other people around him were all surprised, and even forgot to attack. What's going on? Startled, he looked over, and when he looked over, he was instantly stunned. Not far away, the grenade just now remained in the air in an exploded state. He could even see that the airflow of the explosion was frozen in the air. Suke can absorb any form of energy, of course, including the energy of the bomb explosion, and at this moment, he was absorbing the energy of the bomb explosion. Next, in the astonished eyes of everyone, all the energy of the bomb was absorbed into Suke's body. He flashed in front of the soldier who had thrown the grenade at him before, and Suke smiled evilly and said, "This is your thing, I'll give it back to you." Then, he suddenly reached out and covered the soldier's mouth, and then injected all the bomb energy he had absorbed into the soldier's body. Ah, ah, ah. Before he could react, the soldier felt his stomach suddenly swell up. He couldn't help but scream in pain, but the scream didn't last long and disappeared in an explosion. Boom! The energy of the bomb exploded in the soldier's body, instantly shattering his body. Within a radius of 20 meters, there was blood plasma with internal organs everywhere. The whole place was like purgatory. Then, Suke suddenly appeared next to a soldier and broke his neck. Not far away, a space channel suddenly appeared behind a soldier, and then a group of hungry wolves pounced out. A soldier was retreating, but he missed a step. When he came to his senses, he found himself suddenly hundreds of meters in the air, crashing down to the ground. Two soldiers were attacking Suk, when suddenly they felt empty and were submerged by the sea. They had actually reached the deepest bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. For a while, space channels kept flashing throughout the venue, and along with the appearance of space channels, all kinds of strange deaths of those soldiers were happening. Some suddenly fell from a high altitude and died, some suddenly fell into the sea and drowned, and some suddenly appeared on the grassland and were killed by lions. All this makes everyone feel terrified. At this moment, it no longer mattered to Suk who these people were and why they wanted to kill him. All Suk wanted was to kill them. As a Titan, he would not allow anyone to survive after doing such a thing to him. They were all going to die. As a result, the entire venue became a one-sided massacre. The weapons in the hands of these soldiers could not hurt Suk at all. Their bullets were just tickles to Suk, and all their attacks were completely ineffective. The space channels that kept flashing around them led them to an unknown death. All this is so terrible. No, we can't hold on any longer. We can't handle this guy at all, we have to retreat. Seeing that his subordinates were almost dead, the captain in charge of the team shouted into the intercom. Not long after, a blunt reply came from the intercom. "No retreat allowed, reinforcements will be here soon." What? Hearing this, the captain almost couldn't hold the intercom. In this situation, they were not allowed to retreat. Did they want them to be annihilated? Facing such a powerful opponent, what would be the use even if reinforcements arrived? "Boss, be careful." Suddenly, at this moment, a soldier next to him looked at him with fear. At the same time, almost instantly, he suddenly felt a chill behind him. Is it my turn? He turned around tremblingly and instantly saw that a space channel had appeared and a huge polar bear was rushing out. Ah! With a scream, the polar bear dragged his prey away with satisfaction. Although he had the space stone for a short time, relying on the knowledge of the Eternals, Suk could already control the space stone very well. Relying on the power of the space stone, he used dozens of different methods to kill 60% of the people present. The remaining 30% were killed by Suk himself, and the remaining 10% were still resisting in vain. But to Suk, it seemed that they were almost no different from dead people. Killing these people should not be so troublesome. He stored many kinds of energy in his body, and any one of them could kill these human soldiers in seconds, but he didn't want to do that. He just wanted these guys to experience the most primitive fear. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, at this moment, there was a sound of a motorcycle not far away, and then a motorcycle rushed towards Suk. This is... Suke frowned. The man on the motorcycle looked very familiar to him. He had messy black hair, a signature metal arm, and a mask on his face. This is the Winter Soldier, a good friend of Captain America Steve Rogers. At this moment, Suk finally remembered, and at the same time, he had already guessed the identity of the people who assassinated him. Hydra. The Winter Soldier is a secret weapon of the Hydra organization. No one can control him except Hydra. It's really interesting that even Hydra came to the door. With a sneer in his heart, Suke immediately moved his wrist again. The reason was simple. He just wanted to tear the Winter Soldier apart. From a distance, the Winter Soldier had already raised his weapon and aimed it at Suke, and then pulled the trigger. He was using the latest weapon developed by Hydra. Its power could easily penetrate a steel plate of about 10 centimeters. It was an absolute killer. However, when such a weapon was used on Suke, it was of no use at all. It seems that Hydra's intelligence is very poor. They dare to kill me without even knowing my strength. After being swept by bullets from these guys, Suk's clothes were already torn beyond repair. Although the bullets could not cause any harm to him, he looked really ugly. Then, as if seeing that the weapon was ineffective, the Winter Soldier gave up the weapon in his hand, and then drove the motorcycle to the maximum horsepower and crashed into Suk. When he was about to get close to Suk, the Winter Soldier suddenly jumped up and landed steadily on the ground, and the motorcycle crashed into Suk. A trifle. With a cold snort, Suk casually slapped the motorcycle that was rushing towards him and flew away with a slap. Then, he walked towards the Winter Soldier step by step. If it were an ordinary person, seeing that the opponent had such a powerful force, most of them would choose to retreat, but the Winter Soldier was a brainwashed war machine. There was only the task in his mind, and he had no ability to think, so even though he saw that Suk was so powerful, the Winter Soldier still raised his iron fist and rushed towards him. Suk sneered, and then he really wanted to tear the Winter Soldier apart with his hands. The Winter Soldier is a war machine created by Hydra. He has no feelings, no memories, no fear, and no emotions. All he has in his mind is a mission. Or to be more precise, it is a mission to kill Suk. But at this moment, Suk also wants to kill the Winter Soldier. Seeing the Winter Soldier suddenly jump up, then raise his iron fist and hit his chest hard, Suk suddenly wanted to test his strength, so he neither dodged nor attacked, and took the punch. Boom! When the iron fist hit Suk, it only made a slight sound like metal collision, and Suk almost didn't feel it at all. This made Suk a little disappointed. He looked down at the Winter Soldier in front of him and said, "Very good, you probably bent a hair on my body just now." Then, he kicked out and instantly kicked the Winter Soldier up, and then smashed it hard on a car, smashing the car into a deformed shape. However, as a war machine, the Winter Soldier's body's ability to resist blows is also very strong. After a while, he stood up again, but his steps were a little unstable, and he was obviously injured. There is no way we can be his opponent. I don't want to fight this man anymore. Retreat. Staying here will only lead to your death. The Winter Soldier is no match for us. What can we do? Run away. After seeing this scene, the remaining Hydra soldiers finally lost their desire to fight completely. In the next second, they were ready to escape. But it was obvious that Suk would not give them a chance to escape. In an instant, he appeared behind the two Hydra soldiers, then grabbed their necks and threw them into the sky. With two screams, the two Hydra soldiers fell to the ground and turned into meat paste. With a slap, a Hydra soldier was instantly blown up by him, and blood splattered, dyeing the entire venue red. In just a moment, the Hydra team of more than 30 people was killed by Suk, leaving only one person. "You, don't come over here. If you come over here again, I won't be polite." The last remaining Hydra soldier fell to the ground and retreated, shouting at Suk in fear. But unfortunately, Suk didn't want to pay attention to him at all. But just when Suk walked up to the last remaining Hydra soldier and was about to send him to see his friends, this guy fainted with his eyes rolled back. Suk was a little speechless. Did he faint? It was a Hydra. He didn't make a move in the end, but looked in another direction. Then, he saw the Winter Soldier rushing towards him, with murderous intent in his eyes. The Winter Soldier was a war machine. Strictly speaking, it was not his intention to do such a thing. He was actually a victim, but Suk didn't think so. He would not let the Winter Soldier go just because he had no thoughts. In his opinion, that was just stupid. He was able to live to this day because of the superpowers of the Eternal Clan. If he didn't have superpowers and was just an ordinary person, he would have been killed by the Winter Soldier by now, right? Being kind to the enemy is being cruel to yourself, and Suk would never be cruel to himself. Originally, Suk had a simpler way to kill the Winter Soldier, such as opening a space channel and teleporting the Winter Soldier to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean to drown him, or teleporting him to a volcano to burn him to death, or teleporting him to an uninhabited island to starve him to death. These can kill the Winter Soldier, because the Winter Soldier is essentially just a human being. But I don't know what happened. The first time he saw the Winter Soldier, Suk wanted to tear him apart with his bare hands. So at the beginning, he didn't use the simplest method to kill the Winter Soldier. The Winter Soldier raised his fist and rushed towards Suk again. This time, Suk finally started to take action. Just by raising his hand slightly, Suk caught the Winter Soldier's powerful punch, and then just twisted it, and the Winter Soldier's metal arm instantly turned into a twist. With one hand clamping the Winter Soldier's neck and the other hand pinching the Winter Soldier's metal arm, Suk tore the Winter Soldier's metal arm off his body with a slight tear. Blood was gushing from the broken arm. This feeling is really good. Staring at the already somewhat weak Winter Soldier in front of him, Suk smiled contemptuously. Before you take action next time, please first understand who you are going to deal with. To be honest, the intelligence of Hydra is really too poor. After saying this, Suk lost interest in the Winter Soldier. With a thought, a space channel opened in front of him again. At the other end of the channel, there was a boiling magma. Stop. Just as Suk was about to throw the Winter Soldier down, a shout suddenly sounded, and then something flew towards Suk. Looking closely, it was a shield. The round shield hit Suk at an incredible angle, but Suk grabbed it. Staring at the shield in his hand, Suk was a little surprised because he had guessed who was coming. Then, not far away, a man in a white and blue uniform suddenly appeared in Suk's sight. It was Captain America. Captain America's real name is Steve Rogers. He was born on July 4, 1920 in Brooklyn, New York, USA. He was originally a thin recruit. After accepting the experimental transformation of the US government, he became a super soldier, which made his strength, speed, endurance and other physical fitness far beyond ordinary people. He was also given a shield made of vibranium, one of the hardest metals in the world, by the US government. From then on, Steve, as Captain America, made outstanding contributions to the United States and the world in World War II. Later, in an operation at the end of World War II, Captain America fought with his old enemy Red Skull and fell into the sea and was frozen for nearly 70 years until he was discovered and thawed by S.H.I.E.L.D. It is worth mentioning that Captain America is not only a member of the Avengers, but also the recognized leader of the Avengers. Since then, under the leadership of Captain America, the Avengers have fought bravely and won nearly impossible victories again and again. But to be honest, Suk did not expect to meet Captain America here. Walking towards Suk step by step, Rogers frowned more and more, because at this moment, the scene here was too horrifying, with countless broken limbs, blood plasma and internal organs scattered on the ground, which seemed to take him back to World War II. Did you do all this? Standing not far from Suk, Rogers frowned and asked. Is there anyone else besides me? Suk said with a smile, not caring at all. How could you do this? Who gave you the right to deprive others of their lives? Rogers was a little angry. After staring at the old-fashioned captain, Suk said, Captain, before you blame others, can you please clarify the situation first? First, these guys attacked me first. Second, these guys are all Hydra. They are not good people at all. Killing them is also a contribution to world peace. Hydra. When Rogers heard this, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes, and he murmured, "How is this possible? Hasn't Hydra been destroyed?" Captain America had just woken up from his deep sleep. After so many years of transformation, Hydra has successfully invaded various parts of the United States, and even S.H.I.E.L.D. has their people. But of course, only Sook knows about this. Hydra is not so easy to be destroyed. Captain, please don't be so naive, okay? Also, if you have nothing else to do, please leave. Anyway, no matter what you say, I will not return Bucky to you. Soo-K did not like the Captain of the United States because he felt that the Captain of the United States was too kind and did not want to talk to him at the moment, so he directly ordered him to leave. Bucky. Hearing this name, Roger's body suddenly shook violently, and then he said in disbelief, "You? How do you know this name? Wait, are you saying that the person you have is Bucky? How is this possible?" Seeing Roger's surprised face, Soo-K couldn't help but curse in his heart. It turned out that Rogers didn't know that the Winter Soldier was Bucky. Then, as if to confirm what Sook said before, the mask on the Winter Soldier's face suddenly fell off, and then Bucky's face appeared in front of Rogers. "Bucky, it's really you. Got you. How could you still be alive?" Rogers shouted in shock, his body trembling. However, facing Rogers' shouting, Bucky still had a blank expression on his face, like a robot. "It's useless," Sook said. "Hydra has transformed and brainwashed him. Now he has no memory of you. He is just a war machine, a Winter Soldier. Now I want to kill him, please leave first," Sook said, throwing the shield in his hand to Rogers, and then preparing to throw Bucky into the magma. "Stop, he is my friend, I can't let you hurt him." Rogers caught the shield in the air, shouted, and suddenly ran towards Soo-K. Soo-K's eyes were cold, and he whispered, "Captain, don't challenge my bottom line. He was sent to kill me as a war machine before. I can't let him go. If you want to stop me, don't blame me for being rude." In the story of Captain America 3, Rogers knew that Bucky was the murderer of Tony's parents, but he still chose to hide it from Tony and help Bucky, and he also said that it was for Tony's good. This is also a reason why Soo-K doesn't like Captain America. His feelings for Bucky exceed his responsibilities to other members of the Avengers. And now, the appearance of Bucky has made Rogers completely lose his mind. He has only one thought in his mind, that is, he can't let Soo-K kill Bucky. Even if Bucky is just a war weapon of Hydra. "You are really stubborn." Sook was not surprised at Rogers' reaction, because he knew how important Bucky was to Rogers, but this still couldn't stop him. Sook took another step forward, and his right hand had already reached into the space channel. Below was boiling magma. At this moment, as long as he let go, Bucky would definitely die. Bang, bang, bang. Suddenly at this moment, a burst of gunfire rang out, and every bullet hit Sook, causing Sook to stop what he was doing. Looking back, it was Rogers. Sook was a little surprised. Could Captain America also use a gun? Captain America would not use a gun under normal circumstances, but just now he saw that Sook was about to throw Bucky into the lava, and he was too late to save him, so he could only pick up the gun that the Hydra soldier had dropped on the ground, hoping to stop Sook. Sure enough, his method worked, and Sook stopped. Throwing Bucky on the ground like a dead dog, Sook walked towards Rogers and asked as he walked, "Captain, you should know who I am, right?" "That's right." Rogers threw away his pistol, put his shield in front of him again and said, "Nick told me that you were an alien from outer space. Did he tell you not to mess with me?" Soo-K smiled, and his eyes turned red. Because he had heard Nick Fury talk about Sook before, Rogers also roughly knew Sook's ability. When he saw Sook's eyes suddenly turned red, he immediately realized something, then squatted on the ground and blocked his shield in front of him. Boom. In an instant, a powerful red shock wave suddenly shot out from Sook's eyes, and then hit the shield hard. The powerful force instantly blasted Rogers dozens of meters away, and then hit the ground hard. Even as a super soldier, Rogers almost couldn't withstand such a collision. Then, before he could stand up, he suddenly saw that Sook's figure had disappeared from the place just now, and at this moment, he suddenly realized that someone seemed to appear behind him. Looking back, he saw that Sook had already stepped out of the space channel. Without any hesitation, Rogers stood up immediately, then raised the shield and slashed at Sook. Seeing this, Suke immediately stretched out a hand, and then gently pinched the shield. No matter how hard Rogers tried, he still couldn't move the shield at all. Don't you understand yet? Suke smiled and looked at Rogers in front of him and said, even if you have super fighting skills, they are useless in the face of absolute power. If I want to kill you, it's like crushing an ant. 4. Why do you want to do this? Why be a criminal when you can be a hero? Rogers struggled to fight against Suke while speaking with great effort. Criminal. Suke found it extremely funny when he heard this. Is killing Hydra also considered a criminal? Is it only when you are killed by Hydra that you are not a criminal? They are about to kill you, but you still have to spare them with mercy. Is this mercy? This is stupid. I'm sorry, I never thought about becoming a hero, especially the kind of hero you mentioned. With a wicked smile on his face, Suke, without any hesitation, directly pulled the shield from Rogers' hand and threw it aside. The flying shield was like a dart, and was embedded in the concrete ground, causing the ground to tremble. Without the shield, the only thing Rogers could rely on was his own strength, but it was obvious that his so-called strength was completely useless in front of Suke. He couldn't even withstand Suke's punch. Human power is absolutely no match for a titan. Hey, Suke, stop it, Rogers is not an enemy. Just when Suke was about to punch Rogers in the face and let him have a good sleep, a sound suddenly came from the air not far away. Suke looked up and saw Tony flying over, and behind him were 2 fighter planes. One was from S.H.I.E.L.D., and the other was from the X-Men. Tony and S.H.I.E.L.D. would come, which was something Suke expected. After all, he was the one who asked Emma to return to Stark Tower, and Emma would definitely tell Tony about it. New York City is the headquarters of S.H.I.E.L.D., and almost everything here is monitored by S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. would naturally be aware of such a big thing at the first time. But what surprised Suke was that even the X-Men came, which was a bit beyond his expectations. Suke had no idea that the reason why the X-Men came was because Nick Fury called Professor X. When he knew that someone pretended to be S.H.I.E.L.D. and took Suke away, Nick Fury knew that this matter must be not simple, and it might get out of control. Of course, he was not worried about Suke being in danger. With Suke's power, no one in the world should be able to hurt him. Nick Fury was worried that if Suke stubbornly believed that this incident was related to S.H.I.E.L.D. and insisted on blaming S.H.I.E.L.D., he had to find someone to persuade Suke. After all, he didn't want what happened before to happen again. Then, Iron Man, S.H.I.E.L.D., and X-Men gathered together. Basically, everything that was supposed to happen happened. Anyway, in this situation, it would be a bit unreasonable to attack Captain America again. In the end, Suke let Captain America go. Tony landed next to Suke first, and first took a look at the surrounding environment. He looked at Suke helplessly and said, "What's going on? Who made you so angry, and did you do all this?" "It was Hydra. Hydra wanted to assassinate me. But they were too weak, and I killed them," Suke replied calmly, as if he was telling a very simple story. Hydra. Tony was somewhat surprised to hear the name, and then he helped Rogers up beside Suke and asked, "Captain, what's going on? Wasn't Hydra completely destroyed during World War II? And how did you get into a fight with him? To be honest, his strength is not something humans can contend with." "I just found out about Hydra. Bucky." Rogers had just said half of his words when he suddenly remembered something and started running in the direction where Bucky was before. Etc. "Bucky. Are you talking about the Bucky who fought with you back then? How is that possible? Didn't he die 70 years ago?" Tony said in surprise. But at this time, Rogers had no time to pay attention to him. On the other side, the X-Men's plane landed, and then Hank pushed Professor X down, followed by Wolverine and Jean. At the same time, Nick Fury also came down with a small team of fully armed agents, and behind them were Red Tank and Emma. In short, almost all the people that Suke knew were gathered here. When everyone saw the scene in front of them, their faces couldn't help but become ugly, especially Nick Fury and the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents behind him. Their faces turned pale with fear. They were really worried that Suke would blame them for this incident. If this was the case, they would probably end up like this later. "Suke, are you okay?" Although the surrounding environment was very nauseating, Chin still came to Suke as soon as possible, and then looked at Suke with a nervous face and asked. Suke smiled and said, "It's okay, these guys can't hurt me, don't worry. Even if I can't hurt you, I can't do this. Look at what your clothes have become. Chin looked at Suke, whose clothes had been torn into pieces, with a distressed look on his face. Don't worry, it's just clothes, I can change them when I go back. Suke smiled and scratched Chin's nose gently. Hey kid, you've gone too far this time, haven't you? Then, another voice sounded, and then Wolverine appeared in front of Suk, and behind him were Professor X and Hank. Wolverine thought he was already fierce enough, but when he saw the scene in front of him, he realized that he was really a little bit compared to Suk. Although both of them killed people, Suk's method of killing was much more unforgettable. Professor X had a headache, because he really didn't expect Suk to cause such trouble. So, what is going on here? Professor X pinched his forehead and said helplessly. Professor, let me explain this matter. Suke was about to speak, but Nick Fury, who was not far away, suddenly came over, walked to a relatively intact body next to him, and opened his bulletproof vest. In an instant, a special symbol appeared in front of everyone. This is a special symbol with a red skull on the top and 6 octopus legs on the bottom. This is the Hydra symbol. Could it be that these guys are all Hydra? Professor X is knowledgeable and recognized the symbol immediately. But then he said with a puzzled look on his face, but I heard that Hydra was completely eliminated during World War II. How come they are here? I'm not very clear about this either. Nick Fury frowned and said, in all records, Hydra was completely destroyed during World War II, but the facts do not seem to be so. These guys still exist in this world, and their target this time is Suk. Suk. For a moment, everyone's eyes turned to Suk again. Suk shrugged and said indifferently, don't worry about me, no matter what Hydra or 10-headed snake, I will kill one by one. Everyone was a little speechless, thinking who the hell is worried about you, do you still need people to worry about you? Anyway, after confirming that the guys killed by Suk were all Hydra agents, Professor X was a little calmer, because Hydra has always been the largest terrorist organization on Earth, and has always tried to control and rule the Earth. It is an absolutely dangerous element. Report to the commander. We found a survivor. Then, at this moment, a SHIELD agent suddenly shouted not far away, and then 2 SHIELD agents dragged the Hydra soldier over. Suk took a closer look and found that it was the guy who was scared unconscious by him before. But of course, he has woken up now. Originally, the interrogation of mortals should have been conducted in private, but now Suk and Professor X and others are here, and Nick Fury can't take the mortal away directly, so he can only interrogate him here temporarily. Seeing the 2 SHIELD agents pressing the Hydra soldier to his knees on the ground, Nick Fury said with a serious face, tell me, what is going on? Why does your organization still exist? How do you know Suk? Why do you want to kill him? I have no idea. I do not know anything. The Hydra knelt on the ground and said with a scared face. Nick Fury looked helpless and could only look at Professor X and said, Professor, please. Professor X nodded slightly and used telepathy. But after a moment, he shook his head and said, he is right. He really knows nothing. He is just following the orders from above. Nick Fury was somewhat disappointed. He finally found a living person, but he couldn't ask anything. It was really unlucky. Captain, what are you doing? You can't take him away without the director's order. Please don't make things difficult for us. Suddenly, another voice sounded not far away. Everyone looked up and saw that Rogers had already carried the unconscious Bucky on his shoulders, as if he was ready to take Bucky away from here. What's going on? Before others could figure out what was going on, a breeze blew, and Suk appeared not far from Rogers. Captain, put this guy down, or I won't show mercy to you anymore. Suke said calmly, I owe Bucky too much. I won't hand him over to you. Unless I die. Rogers said firmly, hey, is it necessary for you to do this for a Hydra soldier? Seeing that Suk seemed to really have the intention to kill, Tony hurriedly tried to dissuade him. You know, Suk and Rogers both wanted to win over members to join the Avengers, and he really didn't want to see them kill each other. Or to be more precise, he didn't want to see Suk kill Rogers. I have to say that the friendship between Rogers and Bucky is indeed very touching, but touching as it is, Suk still can't let Rogers take Bucky away like this. Put him down, I won't say it again. Suke said again, His eyes were red. Sook, don't do this. You may not know the relationship between Bucky and the captain. They knew each other as early as World War II. Although I don't know why this guy is still alive, this is a very important thing for the captain. Please, don't do it. Tony's face changed and he hurriedly stopped Rogers. At this time, Professor X and others and Nick Fury also came over. Sook, stop it. The captain is not an enemy. I know what you are worried about. Don't worry, I promise to lock Bucky up. I won't let him hurt anyone again. Nick Fury spoke again after noticing the atmosphere was getting tense, but it was obvious that he was also on Rogers' side. Hey, have you forgotten that he is Hydra? I don't care what the relationship between you is, but this guy must have done a lot of bad things. Are you going to protect him just because he is your friend? Are you the captain of the United States or the captain of Hydra? Wolverine stood behind Sook and said with a disdainful expression. Sook looked back and found that Emma, Red Tank, Jean, Wolverine, Professor X, and Hank all appeared behind him. It was obvious that they were on his side. Red Tank didn't say anything, but he clenched his fists and made them ring, which made Tony and Nick Fury's eyelids twitch. His meaning was very clear. As long as Sook opened his mouth, he would directly overthrow Tony and S.H.I.E.L.D. The atmosphere became more and more tense. At this moment, as long as Sook is willing, no one can stop him from doing anything, but if he really takes action, he will definitely drag the X-Men into the water. S.H.I.E.L.D. is an official organization under the United States, while X-Men is an illegal organization. After the Battle of Washington, Professor X-Men finally rebuilt the school and got the president's recognition. If there is a conflict with S.H.I.E.L.D. again, I am afraid that the mutant school will be in danger. Thinking this way, Sook's eyes gradually returned to normal. Seeing this, Tony and Nick Fury finally breathed a sigh of relief. I can let you take Bucky away, but this is conditional. I don't care what Bucky was like before. Now he is just the Winter Soldier created by Hydra, a pure killing weapon. I need you to lock him up and get as much information about Hydra as possible. And tell me at any time. Hydra has annoyed me today. I will be unhappy if I don't destroy them. Sook said slowly. No problem. Nick Fury quickly patted his chest and agreed. Hydra is an extremely dangerous global criminal organization. Even if you don't tell us, we will lock him up and interrogate him strictly. Don't worry about this matter. I know you won't act impulsively. Don't worry, S.H.I.E.L.D. is very experienced in this kind of thing. When he tells us the whereabouts of Hydra, we will go and kill them together. Tony smiled at Sook. However, Sook just shook his head slightly, and then said, Tony, do you know? Among these people, you are the one who should least stop me. Why? Tony asked in surprise, not understanding what Sook meant. Do you know how your parents died? Sook did not explain, but continued to ask. Tony's face changed at first, and then he slowly said, I know, they had a car accident on the way home, and then. Sook found it funny and immediately said, car accident. Haha, you have been deceived. You have been deceived for more than 10 years. Go find Bucky. I think he will give you the truth. What do you mean? Tony's face changed drastically, and he grabbed Sook's clothes, his eyes reddened. I just heard something. I didn't intend to tell you, but now we are friends, I think I shouldn't hide it from you. Go ahead, all the answers you want are with Bucky. After saying this lightly, Sook turned around and left with Professor X and others. Tony's eyes were red, and the memories of the past came to his mind, making his body tremble. Then, remembering what Sook said before, he looked at Bucky who was being taken on the plane by Rogers. His eyes were full of hatred. Although Sook didn't say it clearly, he had guessed something. Telling Tony the truth about the death of Tony's parents will undoubtedly affect the relationship between Tony and Rogers, and even affect the establishment of the Avengers, but Sook still chose to do it. He was willing to do it for no other reason, just because Sook didn't want to be like Rogers, saying that it was for your own good when Tony knew the truth in the end. But is that really for Tony's good? People often only know that Rogers is righteous and that there is an indelible bond between Rogers and Bucky, but who has considered Tony? At the end of Captain America 3, Rogers and Bucky teamed up to beat Tony half to death. In the end, Tony could only watch his friend Rogers leave with the murderer who killed his parents. Who has considered his feelings? That was the murderer who killed his parents. Just because Rogers said that he was controlled by someone, can we not pursue anything? Rogers will do this, but Sook won't, because Sook is not a saint. The Battle of New York will eventually come, and the Avengers will eventually be formed, but what will happen in the meantime is something that even Sook cannot predict, because unknowingly, Sook has completely affected the timeline of this world. S.H.I.E.L.D. took Rogers and Bucky away, and Tony followed them to find out what Sook said before, but Professor X encountered some trouble. Professor X sincerely invited Red Tank and Emma to go to the mutant school and join the X-Men, but without exception, they were rejected. Red Tank's reason was still the same: he didn't like children. Emma was much more tactful, saying that she had been controlled by others and did many bad things to mutants, so she just wanted to stay in the human world. Professor X didn't say anything about Red Tank and Emma's decision. After all, it was their choice and they couldn't be forced. But in the end, Professor X still said that the door of the mutant school was open to them at any time, and they could go back at any time as long as they wanted. As for Sook, he was going back with Professor X, but of course, Sook didn't plan to continue living in the mutant school. He just wanted to go back to deal with the things there. Before leaving, Sook came to Red Tank and Emma again. Hong Tank, you should still live with Tony for the time being, but remember, Tony may have important things to deal with recently, so don't bother him. After instructing Hong Tank, Soo-K looked at Emma and said, Emma, you have to take care of yourself while I'm away. Remember to call me if you have anything, and I'll be there right away. Got it, Emma agreed sweetly. Then, Sook got on the plane, and the plane began to fly to the mutant school. On the plane, staring at Professor X, sitting in a wheelchair, Sook suddenly remembered something about mutants. According to what he knew, Professor X's later years were very miserable. Because of human massacres and various destruction plans, after decades, there were only a few mutants left, and those who were still alive were trying to avoid being hunted down by the human army. In his later years, Professor X's telepathic ability was no longer as strong as when he was young, and every time he used his ability, it would degenerate. Coupled with Alzheimer's disease, he couldn't even take care of himself, and finally died miserably in a wheelchair. But of course, with the arrival of Sook, this kind of thing will never happen. Soo-K, what are you thinking about? Seeing Soo-K staring at him in deep thought, Professor X asked softly, interrupting Soo-K's thoughts. Coming back to his senses, Soo-K immediately took out the super healing serum he had won in the lottery, and handed it to Professor X, saying, Professor, this is something I got by chance, and I think you will need it. What is this? Professor X asked curiously after taking the serum from Soo-K. Super Healing Serum is a super serum that can help organisms repair body damage. I think this should be able to get you back on your feet. Sook replied. What? Hearing this, not only was Professor X shocked, but even Wolverine, Hank and Jean were also shocked and speechless. Let Professor X stand up again. Is this possible? After a brief shock, Professor X finally calmed down. Over the years, he has never given up on treating his physical injuries, but each time ended in failure. Although Hank has developed a drug that can allow him to stand up, this drug has great side effects on the body and will make him lose his mutant abilities, so he gradually gave up hope of standing up again. Because the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Soo-K was a little strange. Shouldn't this be good news for Professor X? Why is he so calm now, with a little loss in his eyes? As if seeing what Soo-K was thinking, Hank sighed first, and then explained, You don't know yet, right? The professor can't stand because of a cervical spine injury, and even the nerves in his injured part have died. Any medicine is ineffective, and even human technology can't cure the professor, otherwise. Just when he said this, Hank suddenly froze. Because he suddenly realized that Sook was not a human being at all. Although human medicine and technology cannot cure Professor X, what about alien medicine and technology? The next second, Hank suddenly looked at Professor X with excitement. At this moment, Professor X also thought of. While trembling as he handed the serum to Hank, Professor X asked excitedly, Sook, this. Where did you get this healing serum? The system is Soo-K's biggest secret. Soo-K naturally can't tell anyone, but fortunately he is an alien, so he can make up such things at will, and Soo-K has already thought about how to say it before. Human knowledge and technology cannot produce such a serum. I made it with the knowledge of the Eternal Clan. Because the materials are too scarce, I only made this serum. But don't underestimate it. As long as there is no death, this serum can cure any disease and injury. Suke said slowly. As he finished speaking, Professor X's whole body began to tremble, and Hank was also excited. Spending his whole life in a wheelchair is undoubtedly a nightmare for Professor X. He even dared not confess to the woman he loved deeply, but today, this kind of thing will finally no longer exist. Give me the injection now. Resisting his inner excitement, Professor X looked at Hank and said. Hank was a little hesitant despite his excitement. Professor, this is alien technology after all. Should we do a test first? It's not that troublesome. This is the best test. Seeing Hank's worried face, Wolverine suddenly came over, snatched the healing serum from Hank's hand, and then injected it into Professor X's leg. Then, in the eyes of everyone who was either surprised or speechless, the serum slowly flowed into Professor X's body, and then quickly began to repair Professor X's damaged cervical vertebrae. Professor, how do you feel? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Hank squatted down and looked at Professor X with a nervous look on his face. He was a scientist who had to conduct countless experiments on everything. In his opinion, it was too dangerous to rashly inject Professor X with alien serum. It was not that he did not trust Suke, but that he was always so rigorous. Just as the professor was about to answer, his body suddenly shook violently, and he fell off the wheelchair and knelt on the ground. Professor, everyone was worried, except Suke, because Suke knew that the super healing serum could definitely cure Professor X's cervical vertebra. Don't need to help me. Facing the hands extended by Hank and Jean, Professor X rejected them immediately. Then, holding onto the fuselage beside him, he actually stood up slowly. Ha 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 ha. Professor X laughed wildly and said, I finally stood up. Ha 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 ha. In just a few minutes, Professor X was able to walk freely. 10 minutes later, Professor X was able to jog on the plane. Then, he asked Wolverine to do another thing. Logan, I have a favor to ask of you. Please throw this wheelchair into the sea below. I don't want to see it again. Wolverine was a little speechless, but he did it anyway. Then, the cabin of a plane flying over the sea suddenly opened, and a wheelchair was thrown out. After returning to the mutant school, Professor X instantly became the focus of the entire school. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Hey, you two guys over there, I will teach you how to play basketball when I have time. Your skills are too bad. And that kid over there, is that how you kick football? Wow, this guy is good and runs really fast, but I'm sure I can run faster than him. On the school playground, facing those surprised mutant students, Professor X gave instructions from time to time, leaving Suke and others behind him speechless. I think it would be better to let the professor go back to the past. Wolverine said speechlessly. Hee hee. Hank laughed awkwardly twice, then deliberately distanced himself from Professor X. After returning to the office, Mystique and the others were surprised to see Professor X could walk, and then Professor X showed off his dance moves in front of everyone. Seeing Professor X so excited that he couldn't control himself, Suke knew that there was no hope in talking to him about leaving here today, so he simply took Chin away. As for leaving here, he would wait until tomorrow to talk to Professor X. Taking Chin to the lakeside of the school playground, Suke said softly, Chin, I plan to move out recently, probably to New York City. I want you to leave with me. What? Chin was a little surprised when she heard this, but then she suddenly remembered what Professor X had said before. Professor X told him that Suke was not a mutant, he would not stay in the mutant school forever, he would always leave here. But what Chin didn't expect was that Suke would leave so soon, and he wanted to take her away with him. Chin had lived in the mutant school for a long time, and she had gradually adapted to everything here. She didn't know if she could adapt to other places after leaving here. She didn't actually want to leave the mutant school. But then again, she was even more reluctant to leave Suke. So in the end, Chin nodded with a red face, and then whispered, I promise you, no matter where you go, I will go too. Suke thought Chin must be very dependent on the mutant school, and it would not be easy to let Chin follow him. He was even prepared to ask Professor X to persuade him. But to his surprise, Chin actually agreed. With a slight smile, Soo-K suddenly held Chin's little face and kissed it gently. Chin's face flushed, and she did not refuse Soo-K, but shyly greeted him. This scene happened to be seen by Professor X, who was standing by the window. Suddenly, Professor X thought of his old lover. Time passed quickly, and it was night in the blink of an eye. Although Soo-K wanted to take Chin, Chin was not Emma after all, so he had to give up the idea. But just when he was about to rest, the phone rang suddenly. He picked up the phone and saw that it was Tony calling. "Sook, can you come to Stark Tower? I need your help." Tony's voice was a little strange on the other end of the phone, as if he was drunk. Needless to say, this must be about his parents. Thinking of this, Sook did not hesitate, and directly opened a space channel connected to Stark Tower. He stepped in and instantly appeared in Stark Tower. "I'm here, what do you want to talk to me about?" Soo-K hung up the phone and shouted to Tony, who was not far away. Tony heard this and took the phone in front of him with some curiosity. After confirming that Soo-K's voice was not coming from the phone, he looked back. Then, Soo-K appeared in front of him. However, Tony did not seem to be too surprised by Soo-K's sudden appearance, because Soo-K was not a human being. He could do many things that humans could not do. What was there to be surprised about? Soo-K was a little surprised when he saw Tony. At this moment, Tony's eyes were red and swollen, his face was extremely haggard, and his body seemed to be unable to stand. There were red wine, white wine, champagne and other wines on the table and on the ground around him, and there were many empty bottles. Obviously, he had drunk a lot. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.